Okay, we are live. We are live and welcome. It is 7 p.m. I will open the meeting of the Lunenburg Select Board, the meeting of December 8th, 2020. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. Town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent its spread. All town facilities are open during limited hours and by appointment only outside these hours. In accordance with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. This meeting will be broadcast live through the local access cable, on Facebook Live, and on public access Facebook page, and will be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after its conclusion. If you would like to join this meeting from a smartphone, tablet, or computer, and you have access to the internet, then you have the Zoom application, you may do so as a public meeting. The webinar ID is 909-174-0347. If you don't have access to Zoom or wish to join by phone in any case, you can join by calling 888-475-4499. And once again, the webinar ID is 909-174-0347. I will call on people as they raise their hand. So for those people on the Zoom application, regardless of its platform, please acquaint yourself with the raise your hand feature. And for those on the phone, you may raise your hand by dialing *9. I will call people in the order they raise their hand or when appropriate, when the appropriate time arises. The agenda posted lists all the topics which may be discussed at tonight's meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions, although not all items listed may be in fact discussed and not all items may be voted upon. We may also discuss other items not listed only to the extent permitted by open meeting law. So with that, I will ask our steward of the Pledge of Allegiance and flag to lead us in the pledge. Ms. Adams.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comment from the board this evening? Seeing none. Do we have any public comment from the public this evening? Mr. Passios.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. As many of you know, I wear many hats in municipal government these days, but I'm here before you right now speaking strictly as a citizen of Lunenburg, specifically in regards to the trash bag program in Lunenburg. I've made no less than 4 trips to my local store to try to purchase trash bags in the past month and a half. And every single time I've gone in, they've been completely out of bags and don't know when they're coming in and have been out for an extended period of time. I put a poll up on Facebook, I believe 10 days ago or so, and asked what the public thought about an option to be able to order bags online and have them shipped directly to residents in town. There were a couple comments, as always, that, you know, give us more options than that, or do both, because of the way I worded the questions. But in general, the added convenience of ordering online and having bags delivered directly to the residents was something that many people were interested in. Since I posted that poll, on a daily basis, there were messages from people in town that, oh, Hannaford hasn't had them this morning, but they're all out again. And, multiple messages as to who had them, who doesn't have them. And especially the extra large bags have been out of stock in most places continuously for at least a month. So I'm asking that the town manager and the DPW director please take a look at that program and see if we can add that option. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment from the public this evening? Okay, let's jump right in. Any announcements, Madam Town Manager?
No announcements.
The announcement is there's no announcements. Okay. 7:05, right of first refusal for Chapter 61A property located at 360 Flat Hill Road. So this property, well, we were notified of this as it's coming out of chapter. And this got sent to all the subsequent boards, Planning Board, the Open Space Committee, Conservation Committee. So all these votes were in our Google Drive. And I believe there was a consensus. In fact, I think it was unanimous as I just review them, that all those boards and committees have voted that we should waive our right, that there's no need for the town to purchase this land. Is that correct, Madam Town Manager?
That is correct.
Does anybody have any questions about this other than their review? Are you trying to raise your hand? Oh, no, sorry. Okay, I didn't know if Katie, if you were looking to raise your hand. Okay, well, seeing none, and I would open it up to the board if they would like to discuss this further or take a vote on the recommendations of the three bodies who usually weigh in on this, which have weighed in on this. It's at this point that I say, is this thing on?
No discussion, Mr.
Okay, well then we could jump right to a motion. Then I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to waive the town's right of first refusal for 360 Flat Hill Road.
I'll second that.
Hold on, I am trying to unmute Ms. Adams. There you go. Okay, so we have a motion to waive our right of first refusal. We have a second. If there's no further discussion, it'll be a roll call vote in the order that I see people on my screen here. Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
aye for me. All right, knocking off these agenda items so quickly. Next, a review of the draft host community agreement for adult retail cannabis license with Greenleaf Botanicals, Inc. So first, I need people who are with Greenleaf Botanicals, Inc. to raise their hand on the Zoom so I can unmute you. And in the interim, okay, I'm assuming Mary Bentley is clapping and not raising her hand, that she wants to be unmuted.
Mr. Chair, Constant. Yeah.
Hi, Constant Pahalik, on behalf of Greenleaf Botanicals.
Okay, let me just unmute Ms. Bentley here. There you go. Okay. So, Madam Town Manager, would you reintroduce us to this agenda item? They have been before us before.
Yes, both Ms. Bentley and Attorney Pohalek have been before the board before to make an introduction about also the process that needs to be followed. This piece, being one of the pieces of the process, is to negotiate a host community agreement with Greenleaf Botanicals. So our council has reviewed the draft agreement that Greenleaf Botanicals provided, and that is what is before the board with edits. These edits have also been forwarded to Greenleaf Botanicals.
Whose comment, who is KF? Whose comment?
That's Kate Federoff at Mead, Tellerman and Costa.
All right.
She's very familiar with host community agreements.
Now, for people just tuning in, can you effectively summarize what this agreement does or doesn't do? Like, what is the purpose of the agreement? There is obviously zoning in our zoning bylaws that allow this at presumably at the location where it is. I believe it meets all the criteria. So, just to summarize for the anybody who's viewing this, why we need a host community agreement?
The host, Attorney Constant Pahalik, on behalf of Greenleaf, the host community agreement is a contract that's between the town of Lunenburg and Greenleaf Botanicals, indicating specifically how Greenleaf Botanicals will conduct the business concerning the marijuana establishment in the town of Lunenburg, along with the compensation that will be incurred for the town of Lunenburg by Greenleaf Botanicals, along with various other obligations that Greenleaf Botanicals has to operate a business such as a adult use marijuana retail store in the town of Lunenburg. This becomes a binding contract on the Greenleaf Botanicals following this. And if once the host community agreement is granted by the town of Lunenburg, then there is a process that the Greenleaf Botanicals has to go through, which mainly the next process would be to have a community outreach meeting, which the community is invited, and specifically the direct abutters and indirect abutters and community residents and businesses to speak and express their opinions concerning Greenleaf Botanicals, and specifically to ask questions. It's mainly a question and answer session in which Greenleaf Botanicals will answer questions that any of the community or residents or members of businesses that may have concerning Greenleaf Botanicals. After the outreach meeting occurs, then the process begins with the planning board with a special permit process to be located at 88 Massachusetts Avenue. And that is a whole nother set of procedures in which the town has for the business to be established. Simultaneously, the Cannabis Control Commission application and the license is, there's a set of guidelines that Greenleaf Botanicals would be following there too. And they will all merge once. And if this location is approved by the town with the licensing.
Okay.
That's just a very brief overview, but it's a lengthy process.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Bernie.
I just want to make a point of clarification on the, excuse me, on the timeline and the process. Our zoning bylaw 250-415K1 requires the applicant to submit proof of some approval or licensure from the Cannabis Control Commission. So that's part of the application process. It's not a parallel process, it's a consecutive process. So the initial filing with the Cannabis Control Commission would need to be completed, and a provisional license or the framework there too would need to be presented as part of the initial special permit filing per that section of our zoning. So, it's kind of a fine point, but I think it's important to note that the town is looking for applicants who have been vetted through the Cannabis Control Commission prior to moving into the nuts and bolts of a special permit approval on specific sites.
Thank you. Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, thank you. I just have two questions. One question, one observation. First observation is that the town spelling is Lunenburg with a U in it. There seems to be throughout the document both spellings with an E and with a U. So I would just advise to make that standard correction. And then my question is, if Mr. Polek has had the opportunity to review the recommended changes from town council, and if he is in agreement with them or if he needs more time to review them.
I've had a chance to review. There's just a question that I had on actually page, just go to page 4. 2.8. For the town to be a little more definitive in the public meeting specifically devoted to discussing the facility for the reasonable cost incurred by the town. So does that define, that wouldn't define a community outreach meeting though? That or would that? I mean, what is the town's position on that? That's
Okay, I'm personally not in favor of 2.8, but there's 4 other members of the board. I'm not clear on how we would go about implementing this. Mr. Chair, if I may ask the town manager this, we're adding in this provision and for the audience out there, what this reads is the company shall reimburse the town for the reasonable costs incurred by the town in connection with holding public meetings and forums substantially devoted to discussing the facility and or reviewing the facility, and for any and all reasonable consulting costs and fees related to the monitoring and enforcement of the terms of this agreement, including but not limited to independent financial auditors and legal fees. I'm not aware that we do this for other applicants.
Yeah, I don't know. First of all, I think that all cannabis is under, has separate kind of regulations in general. So the fact that we don't do this for other businesses is probably true, but we don't do host community agreements for Pumby who wants to start a gas station either. So
does the state require us to have this provision in here? Is this required language then?
not that I'm aware of, not this particular language. I mean, for other consulting costs and fees, they could have them in. I mean, as far as related to land use or anything such as that, any type of expert that had to be brought in for a second opinion. But this I interpret 2.8 as being almost similar to having a meeting tonight, this particular meeting, or an outreach meeting, which in fact we would conduct the outreach meeting and invite the public to the outreach meeting. The town officials are invited to the meeting, but that's basically that we're conducting that outreach meeting.
I would not presume to explain what town council had in mind. We don't have town council on the call tonight, do we?
No.
So I would assume, and I won't make any determination. We'll ask them directly to get their perspective on this. But I'm assuming that it would mean if we had to spend, if you held and advertised on your own at your own cost public hearings, then obviously there's nothing to reimburse. Should the case arise that at such a meeting, we would have to hire somebody to either to provide information or contradict information or provide a different perspective of any position that was taken by your company, I think that's what it would be. So anything that would force us into a position to have to provide consulting or any kind of other auditing, I think that's what it's relating to. But I don't know enough about this particular process because we don't have any facilities of this nature in Lunenburg right now. So I don't know what they could be referring to. So we should get, Madam Town Manager, we should get a clarification on 2.8 from our council.
No.
Then there was a question on 2.4. It is understandable that if a vehicle is registered in the town of Lunenburg, obviously that the company would pay the excise tax on that. Along with any real and personal property taxes, but I'm not sure what they actually mean by that, in the sense it's automatic that if an automobile that was registered in the town at that address would more likely than not be treated taxable by the town anyway. So, I mean, just some of the language here reemphasizes what we're going to do anyway, what we'd be obligated to do anyway.
That's another question we can get clarification from town
Just for
council.
some clarification on that, that's all.
I agree. It sounds redundant. Hold on, I have to readmit. I guess Ms. Bentley got knocked off here. Mr. Marino, you have a question?
Yes.
Shoot.
Page 3, section A and B. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like they're offering to pay 3% on the first year's gross going forward. So it says annually thereafter, this is in section B. Annually thereafter, 3% of the gross sales revenue during the first year of operation be paid within 90 days after GLB's fiscal year end. So essentially, you're only getting 3% on the first year's gross. And correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes a business has a pretty challenging first year in terms of their gross sales. So essentially, we're just getting paid 3% on whatever happens the first year. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Is that standard?
It's pretty standard. So if the company was to earn 500,000 or gross 500,000 or 1 million, the number depends on what the gross earnings would be. Obviously, we know that, but that's
So what
pretty.
if the company shows a loss the first year and you get 3% of nothing going forward for the duration of the agreement? Just hypothetically.
But hypothetically, I mean, that's to be determined.
Yeah, it's going to be determined after the first year of business. We have no way of knowing what you're going to make the first year. A lot of businesses show nothing in the first year.
But they're based on financial projections of other facilities within the Commonwealth. We have a business plan that does show those numbers.
I have to say,
It's a roll of the dice.
Excuse me?
It's a roll of the dice is what you're saying.
No, it's not a roll of the dice. It's 3% of gross sales, whether gross sales were $1 or $500,000. I
Exactly
mean,
my point. Dollar. Could be $1 or it could be 10 million.
hold on. Can I clarify something first? Mr. Marino, because I hear what you're saying, and I want to make sure we're talking and that what it's saying here. Are we saying that? Is the town getting 3% of the gross sales of each year as it goes forward? Is that not correct?
that's correct. Yes, that's correct.
Because that's not what's written here. What Mr. Marino's objecting to is that we're going to get 3% of whatever the gross sales were from the first year only. And that year 2, we're going to get 3% of what you had in year 1 as well. That's the way it's written. But that would be, that's not something that makes any sense, of course. We should get 3% of whatever you do in that year. Is that what your point is, Mr. Marino?
Yes. You just said it. If you make nothing, you make $1 this year, That's what you're gonna get paid 3% on for the next several years until the agreements.
No, it's 3% per year.
It's not, it's 3% based on the first year's, first year's, gross income. That's what it says. Read
Yeah,
it.
B clearly says annually thereafter, 3% of gross sale revenues during the first year of operation. So it seems like it should be during the current year operation or something of that nature. So we have to get this clarified. Unless Madam Town Manager knows this, because she's raising her hand. So, Madam Town Manager.
I would agree with the board that advise the board that that section be changed, as Mr. Marino brought up, and take that under advisement. And just want to add that this is still an introductory meeting as far as the host community agreement. This agreement does not have to be finalized tonight, nor would I recommend the board take action on it tonight. Just review different clauses that you want to see either clarification or change.
And I want to greatly appreciate Mr. Marino bringing that up because again, that is really worded pretty awkwardly at best and inconsistent to what I think the nature of the agreement would be.
But if you take section A with section B and you read those two together, you'll 3% of gross sales during the first year. Annually thereafter. So section B says annually thereafter, 3% of gross sales revenue.
Yeah, but what is the first year? The first year seems superfluous.
So we could, instead of the first year, during the first year, to make it more clear, 3% of the gross revenue thereafter, rather than the first year.
That's what I'm
Right,
saying.
exactly. I see that. I see your point, right?
And we'll bring that to, again, that's item number 3 for our town council. Ms. Adams.
Sure, Mr. Chair. I have a question probably just for Mr. Burney to clarify if I'm following this correctly, that the company is required to submit, you said, proof of licensure from the Cannabis Control as a precursor to all these other things. Then is everything we're doing a cart before the horse, and should we wait until they submit proof of licensure?
No, what they're doing now is required for them to apply to the Cannabis Control Commission. They're required to have a host community agreement. They're required to have held a community outreach meeting. And then each community gets to determine how they permit these facilities individually. And in the town of Lunenburg, we recognize that they won't have a final permit, but they will have a provisional license after compiling the host community agreement, the community outreach meeting, and then all of the application materials through the Cannabis Control Commission. And so that would include background checks and the other preliminary information to vet them through Cannabis Control to say that they are a viable applicant and that they can be permitted through cannabis. And then they would come to the town and we would work through any site-specific special permit issues. And at that time, security plans and all that would be reviewed locally through the police chief. And I would expect that a majority of that information is also at least in draft form, if not a little bit further than draft, included as part of their submission to Cannabis Control.
You have a
That's correct.
follow-up, Ms. Adams?
I do have a follow-up. And so do you have a checklist that we can look at in terms of understanding the timeline of the process in terms of when they would be approved or when they would be official? And I guess, like, for example, on the host agreement here, they list their address, 88 Mass Ave, Lunenburg, Mass. It looks like a business address, but in my mind, it's nowhere near being able to say mail stuff to us at 88 Mass Ave because they're not a business here. So at what point do they become official enough to describe themselves as a business in Lunenburg where they haven't gone through planning, et cetera? When do they become a business in town? No, I mean, it's a real question because
It is.
a series of events, and I feel like being able to call yourself a business here before you've become a business here and something like this, that we should be able to all understand the timeline and when they've received everything they need. Because if they're missing an essential piece or haven't gone through a piece of getting their special permit, it gives them a bit of empowerment to be able to refer to themselves as a business here when they have not yet been granted such an opportunity.
The only issue that I could say to that point is that you have to tie a business address to a host agreement, typically.
And I think that's the thing that needs to we're talking about the facility in Lunenburg that they have identified as their address. They have a letter of intent with the property owner who I've spoken to independently about something else, and this was brought up. So they have agreements that would permit them access to that facility should this move forward in their favor. They can't obviously open and operate in that facility without the special permit and without the authorization to do so from the Cannabis Control Commission. I mean, at that point is when you, I guess, officially become a business in Lunenburg, because even if they have a provisional license, they have a special permit, and the property owners grant them permission to begin construction and apply for building permits, they're not open for business. So I feel it's kind of a nebulous question. I mean, it's philosophical. When are they a business? I don't know. I mean, technically they're a business right now. They're expending money. They're moving through permitting processes. They have agreements with people in town. Clearly they have some legitimacy. The select board is speaking with them. From a practical perspective, they can't open their doors until they have a special permit and a license from Cannabis Control and authorization to operate. And the timeline on that is honestly anybody's guess. The Cannabis Control Commission is constantly changing their regulations to meet with new license types, to address flaws that they've found in business models and business operation. With the pandemic and the remote meeting, their meetings are not necessarily moving as quickly and efficiently as they can, as no one's real business is. At best, I would say Cannabis Control is probably an 18-month process from soup to nuts, till they're telling you can operate. But then you jam a local permit process in the middle of that. I would tell people on a good day, a special permit is 60 to 90 days. Something of this nature could be 180 days. I honestly have no idea. It really does depend on what the application packet looks like. It depends on what opposition there happens to be. It depends on the quality of the plans. It depends on a lot of people's perspective. There's so many moving parts. But I mean, if you ask me to come up with a reasonable guess, I would expect we're 18 to 24 months from this facility opening and operating.
That's correct. I mean, by the time we go through past the community outreach meeting and before the application is deemed complete and before any action is actually taken on by the Cannabis Control Commission, we're probably in the perfect world 6 to 8 months down the road before we'd actually get a provisional license status. Could be sooner, but I very doubtful based on all the factors to consider right now. And that's a provisional license status. That still doesn't move us forward. Then we still have to go through the special permit process with the town.
I would just add that if the question, Ms. Adams, is about putting things before a cart before the horse or anything, this document is one of many that they're going to need from a lot of different places to actually operate. So this doesn't legitimize or delegitimize or do anything that they shouldn't be doing. These are all done in parallel, and not until they have every single one of these will they be able to operate in town. So, Mr. Jeffries.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions for either Ms. Bentley or for Mr. Pollock. So the first one is, as you have your assessments of your projections for income, on the low side of it, what do you project 3% to be when you're fully operational of gross sales?
On the low side, approximately gross sales about 1.2 million.
Okay. So we'd be looking at 3% of 1.2 million.
Yes.
All right. And then the other, my other question is, can you point me in this agreement to the transfer clause, such that if you guys sell, you become a different business, you change your name, that this agreement then transfers over to the new organization?
If you go to 8.1 under general provisions, it says neither party may assign its rights or delegate its obligation under this agreement without the prior consent of the other party, provided, however, that pledge or assignment of assets, revenues, profits, or receivables required in connection with the financing the business by the company shall not be considered an assignment for the purposes of this paragraph. So I interpret that this assignment would have to come before the selectmen before we could assign this business to another entity and say, look, this is what we intend to do.
Yeah, well, assignment that excludes assets and revenue, profits and receivables, that you can transfer all of that without having to come before us. What I would ask, Mr. Chair, is if we can ask the town manager in conversation with our council to just reevaluate that clause and just confirm if it's ironclad in terms of transferability. I think right now the current wording is open to interpretation.
So specifically, just so I understand, you'd want a provision where the for assignment would have to come before the board specifically with the board's approval, something such as that on an assignment. And
yes, but I think what I'm really looking for is just clarification that, if you guys sell, if you guys, whatever you guys do to your business, that this clause carries with the new owners.
Right.
That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
okay,
Mr. Marino.
To you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Follick, is that how you pronounce your name, sir?
Pahalik, yeah.
Mahalik, yes.
Follick. Do you know anything about House Bill H 4398 rather?
Which clause are we? I apologize.
I'm talking about a House bill. House of Representatives.
He's asking about a bill before the state legislature.
Oh,
What was it, H? What? Give the number again, Mr. Marino.
4398. I'm trying to get a clarification on this House bill because it has something to do with the host agreements. They're trying to pass a law to basically put a sunset on these host agreements, a 5-year, in other words, you can make them for 5 years. After that, the towns are on their own. That's the way I understand it. Maybe the town manager can clarify it. The town manager sent an email out to us today that she forwarded from Cena's office, but to me, it's just a bunch of intellectual pap. It means nothing to me. It doesn't really answer any questions. And I just wondered if you might know a little bit more about it, because if that's the case, this host agreement, essentially, if this law gets passed, will be useless after 5 years. And I think the communities should know about this.
I know that the agreement, they've been trying to, with the Cannabis Control Commission, we're trying to have some more uniformity in the host agreements between the cities and towns. And I understand where we're on this particular bill, as far as the duration, I know there's some more clarity on that. I mean, I'd have to just do a little more research on that as how it would relate to the town after the 5 years.
Okay.
Madam Town Manager.
I was just going to add the email that I sent out. Basically, I'd inquired to Representative Sina and Representative Hay, because that's where the bill was filed in the House back last February, was that bill, although different amendments were filed through other different House bills, it only passed the House. It didn't proceed to the Senate. So right now there are no outstanding amendments or bills before the legislature.
Just as a follow-up, did either representative, I mean, I realize Representative Hay is not going to continue in the next legislature, but did Representative Sina's office say that anybody is going to be refiling it? Because if now they're going to have a new session, it has to be refiled. Was there any indication it would be?
No, but I can follow up with that same question. Because I inferred from his that there are no amendments or bills that they weren't refiling, but I can ask that.
Okay, does anybody have any other sections we want to make sure we gather as many things that we want to ask town council, so we minimize the amount of tennis we play back and forth. Either party have anything else that they want to discuss in here?
Some of the issues that are, there's some redundancies in the host community agreement, which basically we will have to comply anyway by the Cannabis Control Commission and by Massachusetts general laws. For instance, as far as security is concerned, we have to have a security plan, and we do have to meet with the police chief and go over our security plan. So that's understood, and that's both by the Cannabis Control Commission and the Mass General laws. Issues of on-site consumption prohibited, that's understood, and that's in Mass General laws. Closure and cleanup, as far as the facility, we have to post a bond anyway. The Cannabis Control Commission requires us to do that in Mass General laws. Leaving these in, I mean, there's nothing wrong with leaving these clauses in, but I just wanted the board to be aware of that. Some of these provisions concerning the security, the reporting, the emergency contact, all of that is we're required to do that anyway. But it can't hurt to leave it in, I suppose. But I'm just saying we are required anyway to do that. And
Sure, and I appreciate you pointing that out. And a lot of these sections, I kind of felt that was true, and they were just being redundant. But if there's anything, so if it's no harm in leaving it in because you have to do it anyway. But if there are other things that you or Ms. Bentley decide that you want us to take up with, we'll give you a day or two. If you want to, after this meeting, you think of something that came up and you want to give it in writing about anything else we want to address, because we'll hold off from talking with town council for a couple days, just so you have the ability to present anything else. And if we don't hear anything, then we'll just send it along what we have gathered today so they can review it and schedule the next time we can meet and, start taking some of these blue lines and red lines out of here.
okay,
If that's amenable to everybody.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. And I appreciate your time here again. And we will schedule with you the next time. And then I know we talked about your community session being sometime in the, somewhere in January, I guess.
Yeah.
So the earlier we can know about when that is so we can advertise it. I have no idea what the attendance or the interest might be. I have no idea what size. I mean, maybe it'll be a Zoom community thing. I'm assuming it probably likely will be if it's the beginning of the year. So
The only issue that we cannot really conduct the outreach meeting, rather have it after the holiday, not too close to the first, sometime in the middle of January.
Yeah, absolutely. It's up to you. As long as it's past that, I agree. And we just want to give people enough notice that we don't give them just a week to notification. We want to make
Under the requirements by the Cannabis Control Commission, we have to give 14 days notice in the newspaper. We have to have a 14-day notice advertised in the newspaper, and then we have to give 7 days notice minimal for all the direct abutters. So we need a 14-day notice period.
Well, that's the minimum. And what I'm
Minimum,
asking,
right,
if,
that's
if
correct.
if we can do 3 weeks to a month in advance, so we can start advertising it.
Exactly, correct.
you'll-
Right.
Okay, that's all I'm asking, because I
Yes.
know a lot of people are going to be interested.
Sure, okay.
Is that something, I've been talking to Adam about the dates and so forth. Is that something that I can talk to him about and we can come up with a date?
Adam Burney?
Yes, yeah,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you can talk with him and he'll communicate
Okay.
that to the town manager and to
Okay.
us. Sure.
okay, very good.
I don't mean to I don't want to put more obstacles. So yeah, if you're communicating with Adam already, he can relay that information to us.
Okay, that'd be great. All right.
Unless I see him visually object.
Nope, that's
Okay.
fine. I can do that.
Okay, thank you, Adam.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And
Right.
if we don't speak before, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Pollock.
No, I said thank you, thank you.
And if we don't speak to you before, I hope you have a very safe and happy holiday season.
And
Thank
you
you.
as well, all of you as well.
Yes,
Thanks.
all of you as well. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay. Interviews, appointments, reappointments. We have the ratification of the town manager's appointments of the following positions: Police Lieutenant Jeffrey Thibodeau, Police Sergeant Joshua Matthew, full-time police officer Jeffrey Hill, and full-time police officer Nicholas Marino. I will hand it over to you and the police chief, Madam Town Manager.
Okay, thank you. So we have 4 ratifications requested back to the board tonight. 2 are to make 2 interim appointments permanent for the police lieutenant position and police sergeant position, and for 2 full-time police officer positions. And at this point, I'd like to ask that Police Chief Gamble take over and like to speak about the 4 individuals.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to recuse myself.
Okay. Is your choice. You may.
I don't have any choice. Thank you. Call me back.
Chief Gamble, hold on. We're not hearing you, even though you're unmuted. Make sure your microphone is active. No, all I hear is fuzz. No. We're having audio problems with the chief here.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to start by reading the letters that Mr. Chief Gamble prepared?
Sure. Chief, you may want to rejoin possibly. If you want to start, you may, or if you want to give him a chance to maybe the technical issue when he rejoins will be resolved. Either way.
I was going to see if he's signing back on, but I don't see him yet. So I'll go ahead and start. A letter to myself from Chief Gamble regarding the lieutenant's position dated November 24th. Dear Ms. Lemieux, effective October 20th, 2020, I was appointed as the permanent chief of police. This created a vacancy in the lieutenant's position and is now my intention to fill the position. The position was posted for 30 days on October 21st, 2020, in accordance with Article 30 of the collective bargaining agreement with IBPO Local 353. To fill this vacancy, I respectfully request that Acting Lieutenant Jeffrey Thibodeau to be appointed to the permanent position. Since his appointment as the acting lieutenant, he has hit the ground running and it has been a seamless transition. Acting Lieutenant Thibodeau has flourished in this position and continues to impress me with his leadership skills. As we navigate through this pandemic, the lieutenant's position is an extremely important position within the department. The lieutenant would be required to assume command of the department in my absence. With that being said, I have full confidence that Acting Lieutenant Thibodeau would be able to assume command and assure the continuity of operations within the department. As previously stated, Acting Lieutenant Thibodeau has been a member of the Lunenburg Police Department since 2011 and obtained the rank of Detective Sergeant in July of 2014. Acting Lieutenant Thibodeau has been a police officer since 2001 when he was hired by the Townsend Police Department and has also worked with the Federal Bureau of Prisons located in Devens, Mass. Acting Lieutenant Thibodeau holds a bachelor's degree of science in criminal justice from Fitchburg State University. During his tenure with the Lunenburg Police Department, Acting Lieutenant Thibodeau has completed numerous investigative classes and trainings, which eventually led him to be assigned to the Federal Bureau of Investigation's high-intensity drug trafficking area and the North Worcester County Drug Task Force. Acting Lieutenant Thibodeau has also received leadership training through HIDTA and has completed 2 sessions of the FBI LEEDA course. Acting Lieutenant Thibodeau has completed several administrative courses involving public records law, internal affairs investigations, and other related courses since his appointment. I believe his work experience, education, and leadership skills, Acting Lieutenant Jeffrey Thibodeau is extremely qualified for the permanent lieutenant's position. I highly recommend that Jeffrey Thibodeau be appointed as the permanent lieutenant. I thank you for your consideration of my requests. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Signed, Chief Thomas.
Chief, are you with us? No. I see another capital planning request coming from the police department.
I'm going to jump in on this computer and see if this works. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear you clearly.
Oh, geez. Thank you, Madam Town Manager, for that introduction. And everything that was in the letter that was said is absolutely true. I'm honored that to recommend Acting Lieutenant Thibodeau for this position.
I would ask Acting Lieutenant Thibodeau if he would like to say anything.
I'd just like to thank the board, Chief Gamble, and Town Administrator for this opportunity. I look forward to, working hard.
Well, we appreciate all the work you've done already, and that all the work you'll continue to do if the vote goes as I think it will go. So I know you've been a real credit, a real credit to the whole department and your work and your dedication to here in Lunenburg and to law enforcement in general. So I thank you for your service already and your future service upcoming. I would open up to the board if anybody has any questions. Ms. Adams.
I was just going to make a motion, but if somebody has questions or comments, I can wait.
Does anybody have any questions for either the town manager, the police chief, who is now posing as Nicholas Marino, or Mr. Thibodeau?
I just have a one comment, which is that it seems that we have a pattern here in Lunenburg of developing leaders into positions. And, based on, Chief Marino being a lieutenant at one point, becoming chief, and Lieutenant Gamble becoming Chief Gamble, I think that certainly there's a pattern here in our town that, as demonstrated through the recent hiring round, that we're able to train the best qualified applicants for these positions of higher responsibility. So with that, certainly, I expect Selectman Adams to make this nomination tonight, but I expect and trust that under Chief Gamble's leadership, that you will have the opportunity to learn more about the role that I know he's going to prepare you for. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeff.
Before we go on to the motion and the vote, can we alert, I don't think there's any, I understand why Mr. Marino recused himself, but because of an upcoming vote, but I think he's allowed to vote on the other three. So if he is listening, you are allowed to vote on all the other three. If you want to recuse yourself from all four, fine, but there's really no need to, from my understanding, so.
I feel like it's hide and go seek, like come out wherever you are.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. There he is.
So, Mr. Marino, we are going to take these individually.
Yeah, I heard you. That was my concern. If you were going to lump them all together, then
No,
you're going to be in the room.
I would never lump all these people together.
All right,
They deserve a vote individually.
yeah.
Yes, they do.
So thank you for returning, and we'll make sure that you get to recuse yourself at the right time. You'll know when that is. Ms. Adams, your motion.
Okay, sure. I'd make a motion that we ratify the town manager's appointment of Jeffrey Thibodeau as lieutenant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. No further discussion, I'm assuming, since I've already asked. So roll call vote. Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
and an aye from me. Congratulations, Lieutenant Thibodeau.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a few comments about Lieutenant
Absolutely.
Thibodeau? You know, he comes from a law enforcement family. His father was the chief of police in Shirley, as you may or may not have known. Jeff, more recently, always has been just an amazing investigator. He's been instrumental in some very, very important drug cases when he served with Hyder and the FBI and so forth. As a matter of fact, I had encouraged him one time to take a break from the drug investigation unit because I did that for 5 years and it's a burnout job. And I was afraid he was going to burn out. And so he did. He decided to take a break. And when that happened, the director of the FBI, the ASAC, called me and said, look, I really like this guy and I want him back. And I think that speaks volumes. This is the special agent in charge calling me to ask me that. So I just want to say, I'm proud that I had a chance to work with Jeff, and I know going forward. And in fact, I've watched him now. I haven't left the station since I retired. Actually, I've been there every day, as you probably know, trying to put those cars together. And I mean, he is just impressive, very impressive. He just really got into this new job and just ran with it. And so I just can't say enough positive things about him. The department is really good, and I'm proud of what Tom's accomplished so far with everything he's done, including all the grant money he's just recently been awarded. So anyways, that's what I'd like. That's all I'd like to say. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to say something nice.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, Ms. Adams.
Sure, and I've said this before, and we're only partway through, but sometimes appointments were one of my favorite nights because of the audience. And so I'm just looking out and people are like in their rooms and alone. And I just feel a little bit somber in the sense that, sometimes there's one person at the meeting, and before I was a selectman, sometimes that was me or there were two people. But on these nights, there would be family and friends, and then any officers that were around town would sort of fill in the back. And so I just sort of missing that sort of acknowledgement that everyone deserves. But it's nice to still get some of the sentiment here tonight.
I would have to concur.
There are some people I see in the Zoom audience from the police department, so They are participating as best they can here. Second one, Police Sergeant Joshua Matthew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sergeant Matthew, I would recommend also, as the lieutenant position becomes permanent, now there becomes a permanent position for the sergeant's position. To fill this vacancy, I respectfully request that Acting Sergeant Joshua Matthew be appointed to the permanent position. Since his appointment to the acting position, he has embraced the leadership role that is required of a street-level supervisor. He continues to impress me with his teaching abilities and his ability to work with newer officers as they come into this department. He's provided much needed supervision to a split shift and it's been good to see him mature in this role as he's taken this on. As previously stated, Sergeant Matthew has been a member of the Lunenburg Police Department since 2011. He's been a full-time officer since 2012. He's a graduate of the 19th Reading ROC. He holds a bachelor's degree of science from Westfield State College. Sergeant Matthew has completed numerous training courses involving investigative techniques and is one of the department's field training officers. He's been involved in numerous trainings of various police officers within our police department since he's been with us. He's viewed as an excellent instructor and possesses the essential qualities to be an effective leader. I believe with his work experience, education, leadership skills, Acting Sergeant Matthew is extremely qualified for the permanent position. I highly recommend that Joshua Matthew be appointed as a permanent sergeant. Kind of a personal note, I've watched Sergeant Matthew mature from a high school senior when I coached him in football and come aboard with us as a reserve officer, now to a full-time officer, into a full-time officer, now to a sergeant with us. And I'm very honored and proud to present him to you.
Thank you very much. Officer, hopefully soon to be Sergeant Matthew, would you like to say anything?
I just want to say thank you to Chief Gamble. Thank you to the board. I appreciate your support and I look forward to the opportunity.
Thank you. I will open up questions from the board for either the officer or the chief.
I would just like to make a comment, if that's okay.
Go ahead. Yep.
Again, I probably said this before when you appointed Josh as an acting sergeant, but and by the way, Mr. Chairman, I'm having a problem with my mic. Are you hearing me all right?
It's muffled, but we can hear you.
Okay.
I think you and the chief can go together and get maybe a discount on some bulk microphones.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I take I bought both these mics, so I take full responsibility. But anyways, I guess what the chief didn't mention is, and probably a lot of people don't know this, but when Josh was in college, he was an All-American. And but anyways, that's just another side of him. The most impressive thing I've ever seen though is when he lifted his now wife over his head, cleaned and jerked her over his head. No lie, there's a photo of it somewhere. But anyways, another really good investigator, Jeff Thibodeau, actually took him under his wing when he was new, and I'm sure he learned a lot from Jeff. I think someday you'll see him in that position because that's really what he's all about. But a great personality. I was really impressed one time when I went to a call he was on. He was dealing with somebody who was really upset, and he was such a calming factor in that call. It was just really, really impressive, I must say. So, again, you got another guy who's part of a really good crew, and I'm proud to say at one point I was part of that. And again, I give kudos to Chief Gamble for just carrying this on, this whole culture that him and I started together. I'm not going to take full credit for it because Jeff, Tom, Mike Luth, they're all responsible for that. And so I wish both Josh and Jeff the best of luck going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd entertain a motion from the board regarding the appointment of Acting Sergeant Joshua Matthew to full sergeant.
I move, sure, I'll make the motion. I move to.
Hold on. I think Ms.
All right.
Adams had her hand raised, sorry. Ms. Adams. Oh. Hold on.
No, it's fine. Michael can continue. I just had a mute because of my dishwasher.
Well, I move to appoint Josh Matthew as sergeant with the Lunenburg Police Department.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Roll call. Ms. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries.
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer.
Aye.
Mr. Marino.
Aye.
And aye for me. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to continued work. A lot of praise from a lot of people. So I'm sure it's all well deserved. So continue the good work.
Will do.
He says he can still run a 4.4 too, so we're going to check that.
I think the Pats are looking for somebody. Okay, number 3, the appointment of a full-time police officer, Jeffrey Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Additionally, we had the backfill for the retirement of Chief Marino, and recently at special town meeting, we were approved to add an officer to our ranks. With that being said, we had posted a job and we have found 2 candidates that I'd like to recommend. The first person is Reserve Officer Jeffrey Hill. We recently had him appointed as a reserve officer. Jeff comes to us from the city of Fitchburg. He is a graduate of Fitchburg High School. He holds an associate's degree of science in criminal justice from Mount Wachusett Community College. He is currently pursuing a bachelor degree in criminal justice from Fitchburg State University with an anticipation of graduating in 2021. Officer Hill's been dedicated. He's close to finishing his FTO program as a reserve officer with us, all while maintaining a full-time position with the Fitchburg Police Department as a dispatcher. This shows his dedication to the town of Lunenburg and to the Lunenburg Police Department. He fills shifts when needed. He helps at the desk. He helps with prisoner watches and details when we can't find anybody. He's volunteered for different things. With that being said, with Officer Hill's dedication, his work experience, his education, I believe that Officer Hill will continue to be an asset to the community and the Lunenburg Police Department. I highly recommend his appointment as a full-time police officer to be effective April 25th, 2021, which is the day before the academy is to start.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. I will ask Mr. Hill if he would like to say anything. There we go.
Can you hear me all set?
We can.
All right. Thank you. I want to say thank you to the board. Chief Gamble, retired Chief Marino, who originally was part of the hiring process for me as a reserve officer, Lieutenant Thibodeau, anyone else, all the sergeants. I've had an excellent experience so far with Lunenburg, both from the department itself as well as the community. I'm very excited to start my career here, be a bigger part of the community.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Obviously, you can hear from all the words for people who came before you tonight, the respect of the whole department for everybody who works there and the kind of teamwork it'll be. So I know you'll have great examples in joining the whole team full time. Mr. Jeffries.
Yes. So this comment I'm going to make to Mr. Hill, but it also is going to go to young Mr. Marino as well. So in a previous life, I was also a police officer with the Army. And one of the things that I learned that I want to impress upon you is the challenge and the difficulty of being in a position of trust at a very young age and growing up with that level of responsibility. Because there's a lot of things that haven't happened yet. With life, I'm sure you haven't purchased a home yet. I would imagine that you probably haven't gotten married yet. There's a lot of great things that will come in the future, and a huge range of emotions that are going to come with it. And that what I strongly encourage you to do is to reach and lean on those leaders that you respect, whether it's Detective or even Sergeant Tossi, whether it's now Sergeant Matthew, whether it's the other leadership within the department. That as you go through those transitional periods in your life, it's going to become more challenging to stay on the straight and narrow. So I just want to encourage you again to lean on those who you trust and rely upon, to train you, who have been there so far for you for guidance, that as you go through those transitions in life, that you're able to do so in a way that keeps your career intact and allows you to grow the way that you should grow. So that's my encouragement to you, and again to young Marino. Certainly, I have no doubt that since you're here before us tonight, that you're a qualified person, very capable for doing this job. And I won't hold being in Fitchburg against you, as I mentioned last time. But certainly, I look forward to you moving to town and being a part of our community for years to come.
Any other comments from the board?
Mark?
What, Ms. Adams?
I said, I like Fitchburg. I don't like when they're demeaned. They're nice.
Luckily, we're not taking a straw poll about Fitchburg.
No,
let's
my
keep
other
it
half
focused.
is from Fitchburg.
All right. So I would entertain a motion regarding the appointment of Jeffrey Hill to a full-time police officer in Lunenburg.
I'd move.
Sure. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd move to have Jeff Hill appointed as a full-time police officer.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Hold on a second. All right. All those in favor, Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye for me. Again, good luck in your new position. And we look forward to hearing great things, and you'll be on this board, I'm sure, again. Maybe it won't be a Zoom board at this point, but maybe we'll see you in person for other promotions as your career progresses. So best of luck out there. You got a lot of celebrations from people who Reese Baldwin and Lucas Shockley and JT Lambert. They all congratulated you. Okay, this is your cue, Mr. Marino.
Okay. Is my mic any better, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, the closer you get, it gets clearer. It just gets muffled as you get away from it.
Okay. See ya.
So you are recusing yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Just the people who are joining in, Mr. Marino's recusing himself for the next appointment. And the last appointment is full-time police officer Nicholas Marino, who looks very much like our Chief Gamble, by the way.
I will step away from the camera in 1 second.
All right.
He doesn't look as old as me. He looks very young and he's ready to go. This appointment, if I may, is kind of special to me to also have been with Chief Marino for 20 years prior to his retirement. I've seen Nick since he was a kid and had the opportunity to coach him in football camps since he was a freshman and watch him develop into a fine young man. He really is the epitome of his father, comes from great stock, and I honestly believe his parents are very proud of him, and he does them justice. He is forging his own way through this police department, and he has done some great things already. I would like to recommend that Reserve Officer Nicholas Marino for the appointment of a full-time position of a police officer here with the town of Lunenburg. Officer Marino recently completed his field training requirements, which allows him to be assigned to cruiser shifts. Officer Marino is dedicated to the department and has demonstrated so by completing his training hours in a relatively short period of time. Officer Marino has been readily available to cover desk shifts, prisoner watches when needed. As previously stated, he is a lifelong resident of Lunenburg, and he has very strong ties to the community. With Officer Marino's strong ties to the community, his dedication, work experience, his education, I believe that Officer Marino will continue to be an asset to the community of Lunenburg and the Lunenburg Police Department. Nick has really forged his own path here with the Lunenburg Police Department. He is very impressive, and not just because he's sitting right next to me that I go through this and embarrass him a little bit, but he really has taken on his own path, and he is really dedicated to completing his field training in a short period of time, which at this time is a real need for us as we move forward, especially with the pandemic issues and issues of manpower and having shifts covered. It's a real pleasure to have him get through his field training and be ready to go. And I look forward to seeing what he can do, and I look forward to seeing what Jeff can do, and as well as all of our young reserves that we're bringing on. With that being said, I highly recommend the appointment of Officer Marino to a full-time position to be effective April 21st, 2021, the day prior to the start of the academy. And I will get out of the camera for a second.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you, Chief. And thanks to the board and Lieutenant Thibodeau and the whole department. You know, they've welcomed me with open arms. I've thoroughly enjoyed working here so far. I like being here. And yeah, I look forward to working here full time.
So the first thing I want to say is that I realize that sometimes being on public TV is scary. I don't think you needed to wear your bulletproof vest inside the police station, but I appreciate that things can get really, really dangerous outside. So I will say the following, though. You know, everybody's mentioned, and of course, you can't get away from you on your own accomplishments and not necessarily on the reputation of your family. And I mean, that comes with, you come with high credentials, but it's really your performance and your decisions and your training and your excellence that'll really define who you are. And that's how I look to it. And I'm glad that we have people like yourself, like Mr. Hill, who are, you know, willing to come up through Lunenburg and really start at the officer level and obviously take your job seriously and are treated seriously by your superiors too in the department. So that means the world to me, and I really wish you the best of luck going forward in the position.
Thank you.
I will open it up to the board if anybody has any comments, questions for anybody.
I'd like to make just one brief comment here for Mr. Marino. You know, my father was in the military before me. I certainly followed in his footsteps there. And one of the privileges of my life was having the opportunity as a young adult to work with him. And certainly, you know, when you have a parent who you respect and admire, it does leave good big shoes, you know. And I will say that the highlight of my own life was when I outranked my father and he saluted me. And so certainly, you know, we all have our own paths that we chart in life. And I look forward to, certainly, I think we all have a lot of confidence and trust in your family. And I think we're all encouraged that there's a continuation of that for the years to come. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with any, if there's no further comment, I would entertain a motion regarding the appointment of Nicholas Marino as full-time police officer in the Lunenburg Police Department.
Sure, I make a motion that we ratify the town manager's appointment of Nicholas Marino to full-time police officer.
Second. Okay. Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. Congratulations to all of you. Good luck in your new roles, and we look forward to hearing good things from you. Help us keep us all safe and town a great place. Chief, thank you for your participation, even the willingness to change rooms. So thank you for that. And
Thank you.
I think you have a great bunch there. I'm sure I'm telling you nothing you don't already know.
Very proud of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Wish everybody a good night.
You too.
Okay, let's go. We're going to leave the appointment process for last. Let's go to the annual license renewals since those are timely. So let's go to that first. So we have, it looks like seven categories of license renewals. Is that correct? Are they separated into like licenses, Madam Town Manager?
They are. The auto and limousine are together, which they're different but similar.
So I would like to take each grouping as a whole. I will read them out, and then we can take each. If somebody wants to discuss anything after I read them, wants to discuss any one company separately, please let me know. But we will start with the 2021 all alcohol license renewals. I will just give the licensee name and the doing business as. I will not give the address just to make this shorter. So the 449 Corporation doing business as Lakeview Club. AAAG LLC doing business as Kindred Spirits. Ian Corporation doing business as Hilltop Farms. American Graffiti Inc. doing business as American Graffiti. Carol A. and Henry A. Baker doing business as Baker's Whale and Variety. Central Mass Garden Center doing business as Central Mass Gardens. Donnelly's Tavern Inc. doing business as Donnelly's Tavern. Elena's Gourmet Grocery Inc. doing business as Elena's Gourmet Grocery. Genghis Inc. doing business as Jack's Country Variety. Global Montello Group Corporation doing business as Honey Farms number 3829. Il Forno Lunenburg Bar Inc. doing business as Il Forno Lunenburg Bar. Zhang Jun Lu Inc. doing business as Asian Imperial. JK Waterfront Inc. doing business as On the Rocks. Lunenburg Zetas Inc. doing business as Bad Larry's. Embers Lounge and Restaurant LLC doing business as Embers Pizzeria. Melendez Magana Inc. doing business as Dario's. PP Group LLC doing business as Bangkok Hill. Red Pepper Inc. doing business as Ixtapa Cantina. Sir Judas LLC doing business as Lunenburg Liquors. Settlers Crossing Enterprises Inc. doing business as Settlers Pub. Smokestack Roasters LLC doing business as Smokestack Roasters. Victory Distributors LLC doing business as Hannaford Supermarket and Pharmacy number 8388. And Whiskey Girl Bar LLC doing business as Whiskey Girl Country Bar. Actually, take that back. The last one is not renewing. So Whiskey Girl Country Bar is not renewing for this year. So they are not on this list. We did get, I should read in, for the annual license renewal, alcohol license renewal, we had a report from the building commissioner, Casey Burlingame, that he has requested that all on-premises alcohol license be approved contingent on passing their 304-110 safety inspections. Is this appropriate to this location? Well, not all of these are on premise, right? Some of these are liquor stores. So we have to make sure that we make the motion correctly, that all applicants that of this list that are on premise licenses must be contingent on passing the 304-110 safety inspections. Inspections have been ongoing since late October, and a number of establishments have not gotten back to the building commissioner or the fire chief or the fire captain in a timely manner with their documentation. The only establishments that are completed right now are Bad Larry, Settlers Pub, Bangkok Hill, Lakeview Club, and American Graffiti. So 2 establishments haven't supplied current DOR certificates of good standing either. So we need to make sure that these are continued. I mean, we can hold up the licenses, or we can make them contingent on them getting this. Does anybody have a method they would like to follow? If we make it contingent, they still can't operate without those, and we won't give them the license until they provide proof of those, but at least they can get them till December 31st. If we don't do it, next week is our last meeting for the year, so therefore they will not be able to operate with a liquor license over the New Year's holiday. So just want to make that clear. Mr. Jeffries.
Yes. So, I think that we should delay the licensure till next week for those who have not fully complied. I'm certainly comfortable. I think I could be comfortable passing a contingent approval. However, I mean, I think what I'm thinking of is all of us, right? That when we need to renew our licenses, we get exactly one letter from the state telling us. We don't get multiple correspondence, and then contingent approvals so long as we agree to pay a fee by a certain date. It just seems to me, we want to support business. I don't want to be punitive, but I think I would be more comfortable for the people who are not compliant with all the requirements to get a license, that we have that discussion next week. and that we approve all those who are fully compliant.
Ms. Adams?
Okay, I have a couple questions. Could you repeat again what is missing?
They have safety inspections that are not, so they have to have safety inspections, that was part from the building commissioner, and then some of the establishments do not have Department of Revenue certificates of good standing, which means they probably have outstanding bills or taxes they have not paid to Department of Revenue. So there were two sections here.
Okay, so my follow-up of that is that this year has been very hard to book and organize and arrange things that we normally would do for a variety of reasons, whether or not businesses were closed or people were in their quarantine or sick. And I just feel like it's been a hard year to go through what is normally, for some people more than others, like, having 4 children at home, only in school 2 days a week. So I don't want to be extra difficult. Obviously, everybody should meet the requirements, but I also don't want to not acknowledge that things have been so hard on these businesses. Not complying may have a variety of not excuses, but reasons that we can't really predict. I don't feel any need to be tough on them. Rather, I don't know what the right rule would be, whether or not they can have an extension or make sure these are complete by the end of January. I don't know if the town manager could weigh in on what type of leeway they have, but I feel like it's just been a really hard year on some people, and we probably don't even know the half of it. And so I don't want to hurt a business at all.
Yeah, just to be clear, part of your question, what if we approve them contingent? They cannot operate with the license. They will not get the license until they meet all the correct requirements. So there's no extension or anything. It's just a matter of they've paid it, and it'll just be held. It'll be held at town hall until they meet all the requirements. So the only thing we're doing is, do we wait for all those requirements and vote on it after they've done it? Or do we vote on it now saying, hey, we're not going to meet for 2 weeks. And if you can straighten it out in the next 2 weeks, you have approval from us already. You just have to show that you've met the other criteria. That's what's held here. And personally, I agree with what you've said. I think it's been a tough year, and I'm not willing to be, really a hard noser about this. I'm willing to give them the approval, provided they provide all the other stuff, and they can do that asynchronously with us. Mr. Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Ms. Adams' comments regarding this tough year for the businesses, and I also agree with Mr. Jeffries and his recommendation that for the businesses that don't have the materials completed that they need to for renewal, that we should hold those until next week. I would like to see, if possible, that if the businesses don't get the materials in, at least they respond to this board with a brief email that states, what's outstanding and when they'll have it completed. That would go a long way towards, for myself, to approving any or providing a contingent approval.
So you would want them, because my first question, if I understand you correctly, and please correct me if I do not understand you, that you'd be willing to give contingency, but only if they respond between now and next week?
Well, yeah, I'd like them to say, hey, I have a safety inspection outstanding. I've scheduled it the next couple of weeks or whatnot. I just don't want to contingently approve something when we've had no other correspondence with the business.
To that end, Madam Town Manager, has your assistant contacted these businesses, and are they aware that they are deficient in this?
Yes, they've been contacted at least once, and if more than once in some cases.
Okay.
And the building inspector and fire chief are going out later this week to perform additional inspections for ones that were required follow-up.
Gotcha. Mr. Marino? Oh, sorry.
And just as a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. So what you're saying is if we vote on these things tonight contingent, they can't do anything anyway. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So my concern is what's the agenda going to look like next week if we wait till next week to throw all this on?
Right.
So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's not even that. It's the same thing, right? We're not going to allow them to operate unless they do what they need to do. We get it done tonight. If they don't do it, they're not going to operate anyway. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
And that logic was what I was going to ask. If we're willing to do it next week, contingent, if everybody doesn't get all the things they need to do in 1 week, if we're willing to do it then why wouldn't we just do it now? And, again, they know that we're serious. And not only won't we give them the license, by law, we can't give them the license. I think we can't because they haven't met the requirements.
So that being said, I'd be in favor of just doing exactly that.
Okay.
Make it tonight. They can't operate anyway. So.
Ms. Adams?
Sure. I have a question and a comment. One is a question in terms of, I know it is renewal, but I didn't see Lonnie's Orchard on the list. And they have the newest one, and I suspect that they would want to renew it. Have they not applied for renewal?
You're correct. They're not on there, but I know their intent was to apply for renewal.
And do you want to add them to the list before we make action? If you have any documentation?
I would want to wait for confirmation from Elaine for that. So that can be singled out next week.
So let me ask you this. Are all the people on this list with their fees, are their fees all paid?
Yes.
Okay. So if Lonnie's is missing, we can catch up on that. There's always one that kind of falls through somehow every year that we have to pick up. So I would definitely raise that, and we'll just have to pick that up next week. Yes, Ms. Adams.
Okay, so has Lonnie's paid for renewal?
That I would have to check with Elaine.
Okay. All right. And then my comment was just made by Mr. Marino in the sense that making a contingent is very similar to waiting, because you're saying they can't do it unless. And so if we wait until they do it, it really is a very similar situation. Because of the importance of this time of year and these businesses and how much they've struggled, I wouldn't want any part of being a delay, whether or not it's a power outage or our Zoom crashes next week. There's so many things out of our control more than usual with power and technology. I tried to go to a planning board meeting conservation meeting one night that just never happened because the attendees had the wrong link. There's so many things that could go wrong. I feel much more comfortable making the motion to approve these contingent upon them meeting the requirements. I just think it's just more prudent. These are major weeks for these businesses right now. I mean, I know it would be going into the new year and everything, so it's really, they'd be okay until then. But still, I just don't want them waiting for us. And ultimately, we'd end up meeting like an emergency meeting or something. So I think making a motion that's contingent, that everybody dots their I's, crosses their T's, but then our permission has been granted thereafter. Makes sense.
Okay. Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, so I did check in with Elaine earlier today about this, just to get a history of how often this board has provided contingent approvals. In her experience with us, this board has not provided any contingent approvals, and it's not quite clear to me what the difference is on January the 2nd of saying everyone who has a license can get one contingent upon you meeting all the requirements. I think that part of being a permitting authority for this is for us to make determinations that when all those documents are provided, that we will give approvals. However, I hear 3 people in support of this, so I will not delay this point. I will not support the motion.
Just Madam Town Manager.
I did contact Elaine, and she said that Lonnie did submit everything. They paid in full, and they should have been on the list.
So let's put Lonnie on for the purposes of this. Let's put it on the list. So Lonnie the Orchards, I think it's Lonnie Orchards Inc., but doing business as Lonnie Orchards. So that we'll cover that. We'll cover that license here as well. To Mr. Jeffrey's point, I want to just say that as somebody who is a real stickler for licensing and that has to do this once a year to keep their business going, and I've had this discussion when my previous tenure on the select board, that I have denied licenses for people over the holiday, but those were in normal times where clearly the people who should be applying this had no reason and no excuse for not doing it except their own negligence or laziness. This is a completely different time that they're fighting with a lot of different things. And yes, I do not think this sets a precedent unless we have another pandemic, to God, I hope not, next year. But this is clearly extenuating circumstances. I would not normally do it because it's really their business that's at stake and they have every intent. But if you have to do on-site inspections and things and you're not open and you're struggling to stay open for other things, and maybe you have people who are ill and you have children you're taking care of, whatever, I'm willing to make that exception this year. It's not a norm that I would normally take, and my history has shown that I've let people go and their licenses lapse over the holidays, even though it's one of their biggest holiday seasons. So with that in mind, I will tend a motion and ask Ms. Adams.
Oh, no, I mean, I was going to prepare a motion, but I wanted to have the language of specifically what is going in the contingency, the name of the safety inspection. I just wanted to be able to formalize it.
So if you, I'll offer, and then you can say so moved, but I'll just, so I have it. And Madam Town Manager, if I miss something, please let me know. But I would entertain a motion that we approve all the 2021 alcohol license renewals contingent on that all on-premise alcohol licensees must provide their 304-110 safety inspections before the license will be released, and all licensees must provide DOR certificates of good standing before their licenses are released.
Sure. And also, the list was red. So do we reference said red list?
Yeah, the list has referenced including Lanny Orchards.
Okay. So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll go down. All those in favor, Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer,
Yay.
Mr. Jeffries,
Nay.
and I from me. 3-2. Okay, next one, auto dealer limousine license renewals. We have the following list. Recreational Dimensions Inc. doing business as Central Mass Power Sports. Joe Smalley Auto Sales Inc. doing business as Daewoo North. Michael Chapdelaine doing business as Chapdelaine Truck Center Inc. Colonial Imports West doing business as North End Mazda. Colonial Imports Inc. doing business as North End Subaru. Mass Ave Motors Inc. doing business as Mass Ave Motors Inc. P&S Trucks and Parts Inc. doing business as P&S Trucks and Parts Inc. Colonial Imports Inc. doing business as North End Subaru. We already did that, so that's there twice. I guess there's two locations. I'm sorry. That's why. Carol A. and Henry A. Baker doing business as Baker's Towing. John Gogan doing business as JG Service. Robert C. and Michael R. Lovewell doing business as RC Motors. Carlos Terrero Bismarck doing business as National Motors Corporation. Baker Enterprises Company, Inc. doing business as the Auto Barn. Michael Bartnowski, doing business as KC Sales and Services. Lunenburg Auto Center, Inc., doing business as Lunenburg Auto Center. PNS Trucks and Parts, Inc., doing business as PNS Trucks and Parts, Inc. Again, that one is located there twice. They have two licenses, a Class A and a Class 2 and a Class 3. Michael Chapdelaine, doing business as Chapdelaine Auto Salvage. And Tom Crounce, doing business as Lloyd's Limousine Service. Last one, sorry. First Choice Limousine and Transportation Service, Inc., doing business as First Choice Limousine. So 3 of those are for Class A auto dealers. 5 of those, I'm sorry. 2 of them for limousine, the rest being Class 2 and 3 auto dealers. They have all filed and paid, Madam Town Manager?
Yes.
And they have no outstanding, there's nothing, no contingencies on this. These are all ready.
Correct.
Okay. Unless there's a discussion, I would entertain a motion on the 2021 auto dealer limousine auto renewals.
So moved.
I didn't make a motion, but we'll say.
Oh, okay.
You recommend approval?
Okay, yes, I would make a motion that we recommend approval of the license list just read for the 2021 auto dealers.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All's in favor, Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer,
Aye. Mr.
Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye for me. As we go down, I'm hoping the list gets shorter. Okay, common vic licenses. The certification of alcohol licenses, those were just the applications, correct, Madam Town Manager?
Those are the forms that get submitted to ABCC that have
Right,
to be
okay.
signed by the board.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's no need for a vote on that. So common vic licenses for the following. This one did not get shorter, this got longer. 449 Corporation doing business as Lakeview Club. AAG LLC doing business as Kindred Spirits. IN Corporation doing business as Hilltop Farms. Alan Souza doing business as Stella's Coffee Shop. American Graffiti Inc. doing business as American Graffiti. Carol A. and Henry A. Baker doing business as Baker's Whale and Variety. Donnelly's Tavern doing business as Donnelly's Tavern. Genghis Inc. doing business as Jack's Country Variety. Global Montello Group Corporation doing business as Honey Farms 38, number 3829. Il Forno Restaurant Inc. doing business as Il Forno Restaurant and Catering. IMA Freeman Inc. doing business as Whalum Kitchen. JD Enterprises Inc. doing business as Shady Point Beach and Campground. Zhang Jun Lu Inc. doing business as Asian Imperial. JK Waterfront Inc. doing business as On the Rocks. KCM Donuts Inc. doing business as Dunkin' Donuts. Embers Lounge and Restaurant LLC doing business as Embers Pizzeria. Lunenburg Exxon doing business as Lunenburg Exxon. Lunenburg Zetas Inc. doing business as Bad Larry's. Lunenburg Gas and Market LLC doing business as Lunenburg Gas and Market. Melendez Magana doing business as Dario's. Neshoba Valley Donuts LLC doing business as Dunkin' Donuts. Paul and Linda O'Connell doing business as Lunenburg Exxon. PP Group LLC. Hold on a second. I just want to make sure. Okay. PP Group LLC doing business as Bangkok Hill. Presto Pizza Inc. doing business as Presto Pizza. Red Pepper Inc. doing business as Ixtapa Cantina. Settlers Crossing Enterprises Inc. doing business as Settlers Pub. Smokestack Roasters LLC doing business as Smokestack Roasters. Stella's Coffee Shop doing business as Stella's Coffee Shop. That one I don't understand. Why do we have 2 for Stella's Coffee Shop? There's one Alan Souza and one Stella's Coffee Shop at the same location. I'm assuming they did not pay twice and they only paid once.
You mean, why is the license name same as their DBA name?
Yeah, no, line 5 and line 29 are doing businesses the same in the same location. One's for under the owner's name and one's under an incorporated Stella's Coffee Shop. So, okay, so let's remove that. It's only one Stella's Coffee Shop. Victory Distributors LLC, doing business as Hannaford Supermarkets and Pharmacy, number 8388. Whalum Gas Service, doing business as Whalum Gas. And White Farm Limited, doing business as Cherry Hill Ice Cream. All of these are paid for in full?
Yes.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion regarding the 2021 common victualler license renewals.
Make a motion that we approve the renewals.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I keep saying all those in favor, but I should say roll call vote instead, because you can vote either way. So roll call vote. Ms. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. Marino.
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer.
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries.
Aye.
Aye for myself. Miscellaneous license renewals. This one I will tell what the license is too. So Mark Testa, doing business as Lakeview Driving Range, is a golf driving range base license. AAG LLC, doing business as Kindred Spirits for an automatic amusement device, 1. 449 Corporation Lakeview Club, automatic amusement devices, 4 of them. American Graffiti Inc., doing business as American Graffiti for automatic amusement devices, 2 of them. Carol A. and Henry A. Baker, doing business as Baker's Rail and Variety for automatic amusement devices, 3 of them. Donnelly's Tavern Inc., doing business as Donnelly's Tavern, automatic amusement devices, 4 of them. IMA Freeman Inc., Whalum Kitchen for a BYOB permit. 449 Corporation, Lakeview Club for a jukebox license, the dreaded jukebox licenses. AAG LLC, doing business as Kindred Spirits for a jukebox license. American Graffiti Inc., doing business as American Graffiti for a jukebox license. That seems to be the only one, American Graffiti, that seems to be appropriate to have a jukebox license, if you're familiar with the film. Donnelly's Tavern Inc., doing business as Donnelly's Tavern, a jukebox license. JK Waterfront Inc., on the Rocks for a jukebox license. And Lunenburg Zetas Inc., Bad Larry's for a jukebox license. These are all paid in full as well?
Yes.
Okay, I would entertain a motion on these various miscellaneous license renewals for 2021.
I move we approve the various miscellaneous license renewals as read on the list for 2021.
Second.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Okay, seconded. Roll call. Ms. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. Marino.
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer.
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries.
Aye.
And aye for me. Okay, this is the last one. This is a weekday entertainment license renewal. American Graffiti Inc., doing business as American Graffiti. AAG LLC, doing business as Kindred Spirits. Lunenburg Zetas Inc., doing business as Bad Larry's. Donnelly's Tavern Inc., doing business as Donnelly's Tavern. Il Forno Restaurant Inc., doing business as Il Forno Restaurant and Catering. Are those all paid, Madam Town Manager?
Yes.
And I would entertain a motion regarding the 2021 weekday entertainment license renewals.
Make a motion that we approve the 2021 entertainment license renewals.
As read. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call. Ms. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. Marino.
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer.
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries.
Aye.
And an aye from me. I know this is the exciting part of our year when we do the automatic, all these renewals. So, all right, that is done. Let's go to, do we have any minutes? I don't believe we have minutes. Warrants, there are none. I just got an email that there are warrants for me to sign this week. And any action items? Seeing none. Any committee reports?
Yes, I have several, but I did not prepare to give them all tonight. So I will start with, I see that Heather, the town manager, has a comment about Council of Aging, that they're going to be, and I also correspond with them that their meetings are going to be postponed further, but I think Heather will speak more to that this evening. TCP Design Committee, we have 2 meetings scheduled for next week. One on, I believe, Monday, and then the other one on Thursday of next week, the 14th and the 17th. Excuse me. The previous meeting was really brief. It was about an hour long. And it was, the purpose of that really was just to iron out the schedule for the upcoming next several months, with the intent of having an article before the spring and the May town meeting. So there is the meeting that's coming Monday, I believe, is with the intent of this month is to meet again with the architects to kind of work on the cost estimates, which is the next phase of the process, to really go through the schematic design being finished as presented at the fall town meeting. So the next phase is to really go through the individual rooms and start to furnish them, all the internal finishings, to be able to come up with a more accurate, or come up with a cost estimate for that. So that work will be ongoing. And again, those meetings are next week. And then I'll give more committee reports next week.
Okay. I will quickly say 2 committee reports. Right before this meeting this evening, the Finance Committee, Appointment Committee met to deal with a talent bank submission for the one of the open positions that's being vacated by Mr. Henshaw. So we unanimously appointed Mr. Evan Waters to the Finance Committee. So he will partake in the meeting this Thursday of theirs. And we were supposed to have a capital planning committee, but because of a typo on the agenda that had the wrong Zoom link, we postponed that. So that committee meeting, which we will review the DPW capital requests, will be held 5:15 next Tuesday, a week from today. Again, I'm saving the discussion on the reappointment process as a workshop for last. So let's talk about FY22 budget priorities discussion. There was a PDF provided by the town manager outlining the framework here.
I'll just read the memo that I prepared for the board.
Sure.
As I begin the development of the fiscal 22 budget, similar to previous budget years, there will be more needs than resources. I believe we will have another challenging year with the 5-month delay in a finalized fiscal 21 budget from the state, the unknown effects to the fiscal 22 state budget, and the lingering effects of the pandemic as it impacts our local receipts and town and school departments. As usual, it will take a lot of thought, meeting with various stakeholders, and ultimately a balanced approach to get to the fiscal 22 preliminary budget that will be presented in February. Since we have purposely built up our reserves and are headed into the annual town meeting with 1.8 million in free cash, I have confidence that in the unlikely event that the state aid for fiscal 22 is below the fiscal 21 amount, we have resources to fall back upon. My fiscal 22 budget recommendation will continue to include the 10-year plan to address the lack of adequate police staffing and the 5-year fire EMS plan to get to a full-time paramedic level service. The other needs that I believe need to be reviewed as part of the development of the fiscal 22 budget include the need for an additional IT person to address the growing school and town IT needs, the use of grant funds for a recycling enforcement coordinator, and a minutes clerk that would serve multiple volunteer committees. On the non-personnel expense side, non-discretionary expenses such as Worcester County retirement assessment and insurances will be a significant part of the budget, as will stormwater engineering costs related to the MS4 permit requirements and getting back on track with additional funding for pavement management within the operating budget. We do know that our active health insurance costs will be no more than a 3% increase due to the changes made to move non-Medicare eligible retirees over from our active group to Medicare plans through the post-65 program, providing much needed relief on the active health insurance expense side. Another unknown expense that is expected to increase significantly is the contractual services for our pay-as-you-throw trash and recycling program. This 10-year contract is expiring at the end of this fiscal year, and we are preparing for this to go out to bid in the next couple of months. It is still early in the budget process, and there are many moving parts that become known later in the fiscal year. As budget developments come about or needs identified, I will keep the board informed.
So is your intention to have a discussion about this or present us with this as an opening statement? I mean, what is your feeling about how you would like us to proceed here?
Those were my initial thoughts on the development of fiscal 22 budget. If the board had any input or things that they saw as priorities as a board, that I would try to address those in my process.
Mr. Jeffries.
Yes. Mr. Chair, to the town manager, is it fair to say that the majority of our debt is that's being paid is for buildings?
Buildings, our debt exclusion for the middle school, high school, the significant portion of our debt.
Okay. And how many people do we have on the town side dedicated to buildings?
One staff member.
All right. So what I would encourage is, I know that you have as part of your goals for next year, that the single largest expense that we continue to face as a community is buildings, their upkeep, their maintenance, their, everything building related is extraordinarily expensive. And we are greatly understaffed when it comes to building management, in my opinion. And that's contributing. Certainly there's a lot of factors that contribute to why we have vacant buildings in town. But the reality is that we do. And that, I would like to see that we stop the trend that we're on, which is that we invest tens of millions of dollars into buildings, and then we have one person in town who can go around and maintain them. I know that technically the DPW director is responsible for buildings. However, there's a whole bunch on his plate, and I know that your goal this year is to look into what we can do with that position. But I would urge that a high priority is that we need to dedicate more resources to building management in terms of personnel. And I would prioritize that much higher than a note taker for meetings, as well as, several other positions that are nice to have, but not necessities. So, anything that, the taxpayers are spending a lot of money. And I think that we, what is a better trend is to be able to maximize how long all these buildings last. I know that I had the opportunity to speak with the DPW director, and one of the things I've been harping on, but it's still true, is that we still don't have a list that identifies how old our building systems are, when they're slated to be replaced, how old our roof systems are, that we just aren't tracking any of that. And so, the only way we're going to get out of this ditch is if we have dedicated, skilled professionals who can manage this. So that way, the single largest expense we face as a community is better managed. So I would urge more resources to be put into building management at the expense of probably a lot of other things.
Mr. Chair.
Anybody else want to weigh in? I would say my own personal feeling is that this is a good start. I have nothing to object to. I would say that we don't know what's coming down from the state. So I think that, I'm all for all the plans of hiring, the police staffing, because that was our goal. And if we can do it, we should. I think we have to be very careful in a year that is going to be unpredictable, so that we, don't have, I'd rather make sure we solidify what we have before we add on, and make very sure, and I know you will, Madam Town Manager, but I just want to state it, that we're very comfortable in adding them, and that we know we're not going to be looking at laying off people down the road, so that we're comfortable in doing this. And I think that's all going to come from just as we get a clearer picture. As you said, the state being so far behind and even an FY21 budget does not help. So maybe they'll have a FY21 and 22, a 21 and 22 budget at the same time at this point, because it really doesn't matter if they come up with an FY21 budget officially at this point. The pavement management, I think, is important. I think I remember saying this as a member of the finance committee, and I still believe it now. I want departments to be presenting what they believe they need to succeed outside of what the money cost is, saying that this is what we need, and then let us decide what we can put toward that, with the full recognition that, hey, if you tell us what you need and we don't have the money, they're not going to get it. But I'd rather that than people self-edit their own budgets or their own needs just because they don't think they're going to get the budget, so why put it in the budget? I think it's important for us to recognize what we're shooting for, even if we can't achieve it all in 1 year or 2 years, that we have an ongoing plan. And that's one of the things it's more of a structure. It's not really a budgetary discussion so much as it is a structural, financial and strategic planning discussion that impacts the budget. So otherwise, I think that you clearly say in your paragraph here that we're going to proceed cautiously and that these are your goals. A minutes clerk is not very expensive, and I don't know how important it is as well, or a recycling one. I'm not against them, but I think that there may be other places that need it more. And I think Mr. Jeffries points out one area that he feels needs it more. I don't know that I disagree with him. I think that facilities management is probably something that we should be paying more attention to. But all in all, I'm happy with the framework that you've developed, and as we go further, we'll exercise more precision as we know more. Anybody else on this topic? Okay, Madam Town Manager, would you like to do your report and the COVID-19 update, of which I guess the governor has implemented changes?
So I would just, before we move on, I just would add regarding the facilities discussion, that would be part of my goal, is part of my goal for this year. So that will be examined as far as staffing. So, so that goes without saying, as part of my goal, that would be obviously impact the budget if there's any changes to that as well.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. All right, so move on to town manager report first. Announcement of existing vacancies. There's a vacancy in the Architectural Preservation District Commission, a vacancy in the Cultural Council, one vacancy in the Historical Commission, one vacancy on the TCP Building Design Committee, and one associate vacancy on the Zoning Board of Appeals. And anyone interested can find the application form on the town website, and completed forms can be sent to the Select Board's office.
I would like to say here that we've made good progress again because it got lengthened and now it's gotten shortened again. So we're down to 5 again. So it would be a great president in the new year if we can get all of these done, that there are no vacancies. I'd love that. I'd love that to be said at one meeting, even just one.
Next update is the fiscal 21 tax rate has been set. We received notification on Saturday, December 5th, that the Division of Local Services certified our tax rate for fiscal 21 at $17.74 per thousand. Just as a reference, the tax rate for fiscal 2020 was $18.12 per thousand. Purchase of streetlights from Unitil, as required as part of the next steps in order to proceed with purchasing the streetlights from Unitil. I submitted a formal letter of intent to Unitil last week requesting a detailed cost estimate of the streetlights and notifying them of our intent to purchase. Typically, an updated cost estimate has taken up to 3 months. And in the meantime, our Green Communities Task Force will assist the Assistant Town Manager with information needed for the request for proposals to convert the streetlights to LED and maintenance companies for any maintenance needs prior to conversion and subsequent to purchasing the streetlights. An update from the Council on Aging. Starting Monday, December 8th, the Eagle House stopped doing indoor programming, but will continue the grief support, Alzheimer's dementia-friendly counseling, and Shine through appointments. Also by appointment, users can take out books and puzzles from the Eagle House. The drive-through events will still occur as planned, and Meals on Wheels and Mart van services are still available. The Council on Aging Director will make a recommendation about recommencing indoor programming in mid-February. Community Development Block Grant for Micro Enterprise Assistance Grants. As previously reported, we participated in a regional community development block grant application for small businesses, grant funds, and assistance for local food banks, along with 4 other towns. The Micro Enterprise Assistance Grants are now available and are grants of up to $10,000 for businesses with no more than 5 employees, where owners are one of the 5 employees. Eligible types of businesses include food service and/or production facilities, restaurants, bed and breakfasts, house cleaners, laundromat or dry cleaners, car repair garages, barbershops, beauty salons, healthcare, and social assistance providers, and small retail shops. Eligible uses of micro enterprise assistance grant funds include rent, payroll, utilities, technical assistance, general support and stabilization of business, and other working capital expenses that could have been recognized had COVID-19 pandemic not occurred, such as the purchase of personal protective equipment. Interested business owners can call or email Chris McDermott, the Economic Development Manager at MRPC. His number is 978-345-7376, extension 304, or email him at cmcdermott, McDermott, @mrpc.org to obtain a grant application and learn more about program requirements. In other meetings, events, and announcements, the ZBA has a meeting through Zoom on Wednesday, December 9th at 7 p.m. The Finance Committee has a meeting through Zoom on Thursday, December 10th at 7 p.m. The TCP Building Design Committee has a meeting on Zoom Monday, December 14th, and Thursday, December 17th at 5:30 p.m. And the Planning Board has a meeting through Zoom on Monday, December 14th at 6:30 p.m. Those are all my updates on my regular report. For COVID-19 updates, the Board of Health issued their weekly update, and the cumulative lab confirmed number of COVID-19 cases reported to the town is 243 as of December 4th, and 1 death. The state report shows 219 as of December 1st. Today, an announcement was made by the governor and lieutenant governor of the following rollbacks that would go into effect at 12:01 a.m. on Sunday, December 13th. The administration announced the rollback to respond to an increase in new COVID-19 infections and hospitalizations since Thanksgiving that is straining the healthcare system in Massachusetts. So the statewide rollback is to roll back to phase 3, step 1, which we as a town, because of our numbers, we rolled back to phase 3, step 1 yesterday. So starting Sunday, December 13th, the entire state will roll back to phase 3, step 1. And these include updates to capacity limits, including outdoor gatherings at event venues and public spaces are limited to 50 people. Outdoor theaters and performance venues are limited to 25% and no more than 50% or 50 people, I'm sorry. There is the closure of indoor theaters and performance venues and a few smaller indoor recreation businesses like roller rinks and trampoline parks. It reduces the capacity from 50 to 40% for the following industry sectors: arcades, indoor and outdoor recreational businesses, driving and flight schools, gyms and health clubs, libraries, museums, retail, offices, places of worship, lodging in the common areas of lodging, golf, and movie theaters are limited to 50 people per theater as well. Operators of events hosting outdoor gatherings of greater than 25 people will be required to provide 1 week advance notice of the gathering to their local Board of Health as part of this revised gathering order. This new capacity limit will not apply to sectors that do not currently have a percentage-based capacity limit, including restaurants, laboratories, and close contact personal services. Restaurants and event venues have protocol updates as well. For restaurants and event venues, in regards to face coverings, seating, and performances, everyone must wear masks at all times except when eating and drinking. Seating must be limited to 6 people per table, and customers are encouraged to dine only with the same household. There's now a 90-minute limit on tables at restaurants. There's a prohibition on all musical performances at restaurants, and this includes the closure of food court seating in malls. In regards to workspace places and fitness centers, for updates, the face coverings are required to be worn in offices when not in your own workspace or are alone, are required at all times in gyms, and the state is encouraging teleworking as well. That are all my updates in regards to COVID-19.
Thank you very much. Any questions from anybody? Okay. So now we'll go back to the discussion on one of our goals of this year was to review the reappointment process for annual select board appointments. In the Google Drive, there should be the current mechanism. Has everybody read this?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just go through it and see what we were looking at changing, or I think one of the things we were looking at doing in some of these is actually putting calendar dates on them so that we know when they'll be done. So I'll just start at the beginning. I'll say the first thing, and then if anybody has any question about it, we'll do it. So a contact list is generated by the executive assistant while updating appointments for previous year's annual report in January. So that's coming up. So in the next month, the executive assistant is going to generate a list of everybody who's currently in the positions that are appointed. There is another document, by the way, in this Google Drive about what bodies get annually appointed. So let me just go over them. There's the Architectural Preservation District Commission, Agricultural Commission, Cable Advisory Committee, Charter Committee, Conservation Commission, Clockwinders, Constable, Council on Aging, Cultural Council, Historical Commission, Public Access Cable Committee, Personnel Committee, Senior Citizen Property Taxation Work-Off Program, Town Council, which is probably not an individual appointment, probably really is not appropriate on this process, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. So there are members, certain percentage, a certain number of members from each of those boards that get reappointed each year on a rolling basis. So that's what we're talking about. So step one is the executive assistant is going to come up with that list of who's going to be expiring that year. Anybody have any problem with that? So that's a date certain in January.
Comment?
Say again?
Chairman?
Yes? Mr. Moreno?
If you recall, I requested a negative organic form. He put in the engineer
Your microphone is going in and out.
I'm sorry, technical difficulty. As you recall, I suggested that we re-engineer that
It's still going in and out.
Yeah, all right. I don't know what to tell you.
There you go. There it is. Good, right there.
Well, that's what it's doing. Anyway. I suggested earlier in the year to re-engineer the talent bank form so that it's a fillable PDF. And I just think it'd be a lot easier even for Elaine to mail them out or to email them out and get them back. Even with electronic signatures, I suppose, especially during this whole issue with COVID and so forth. I mean, I can help do that if, I can help re-engineer it. And we have the, not we anymore, not me. But the police department has the software to create the fillable PDFs.
Yep. Yeah, if you have experience with it, if you are volunteering to help the executive assistant do that, I doubt she will say no.
All right.
And I think it's a great idea. I think an online fillable PDF is the great way to do it.
All right. I'll contact her this week.
Okay, number 2, the reappointment talent bank forms are emailed or mailed to people up for reappointment in May. So do we want to move that up? I mean, we appoint people at the end of June. So if we say, let's say by May 1st, that gives people 2 months. Is that enough time? Or do we want to back that up further? Ms. Adams?
I had raised my hand for number 1, so I can just get
Oh,
back.
okay, sure. Go back to number 1, yeah.
In terms of saying generating a list, I feel like what's most important is identifying which vacancies there will be or how many vacancies there are. So not just a list of the people, like I don't want it to highlight who's up for renewal as much as what vacancies there are. Because I think the intent when this began being discussed several years ago was really acknowledging even the word reappointment is difficult because what really is, it's an opportunity for a vacancy. A reappointment list, I mean, calling it reappointment process almost implies reappointment. And I think the main goal in working on this was that when these come up, it's a good opportunity to say to the whole community and to everybody, here's a commission, there's an opportunity to be on it. There will be 2 vacancies. There was a nuance there because you don't want to offend people who are volunteering to continue because there's usually vacancies, but you also want to really make sure people understand they have an opportunity to participate. I don't know if I'm making sense of that, but that was the goal in talking about the process, was to be sure that, and we did it this year because it was more difficult than ever, just wave the wand and everybody is renewed. But there's really an opportunity for other people to contribute or be considered. And so even calling it reappointment, I don't know if there's something else another word we can substitute there, but then in item number 1, in terms of generating a list of who's up, we're really generating a list of open opportunities.
Yeah, which terms are expiring? They're not really vacancies because they're filled. And presumably we're going to vote on people, so there won't be a vacancy. So technically they're not vacancies. Vacancies are when there's openings. Our intent is to make sure that we appoint people, whoever those people are, so there aren't vacancies, but we want to know whose term is expiring. Does that clarify it for you?
No, I wasn't looking for clarification because I understand it. I was looking to try to explain where this comes from. When you said they will be filled, we want them to be filled. What really this began as was a discussion, and I think it was spearheaded a bit by Selectman McQuaid, in that these seats don't belong to somebody who had them previously by default. It's an opportunity for other people to engage. We don't really advertise
these opportunities or these seats. So if there should be like an open enrollment period, I guess would be a good word. Like that's like, you know, with the healthcare, like, okay, you have something, but it's an open enrollment period for these seats. That was the intent in discussing it, so that, yes, if it's the same person who's held the seat for 30 years and nobody else wants it, maybe they're reappointed, but that we make it clear that we advertise there's open enrollment on this commission. You know, it's a 3-year term. After 3 years, you can be reconsidered, but we're going to open it up and consider anybody who may want to be appointed. Otherwise, I guess a lot of people don't realize what opportunity exists. Saying fill out a talent bank form is a lot different than advertising, hey, it's open enrollment. We're considering 2 seats for conservation this spring, that type of thing.
Okay.
And so I guess maybe the word open enrollment or something like that, so that, not saying we're trying to fill them, yes, but not necessarily with the same people, but very likely. I mean, depending upon who volunteers, what we felt at the time was that a lot of people weren't aware there could be an opportunity to serve because the reappointments happened so quickly, so fluidly, and the seats and things weren't opened and talked about ahead of time.
Mr. Jeffries.
So continuing with what Selectman Adams just stated, instead of calling it a reappointment process, perhaps a better verbiage would be board/committee appointment process. And Selectman Adams, do you think that that would better capture a better title for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the word reappointment implies that, you know, somebody's service continues, whereas I definitely think changing it helps better create potential opportunity for somebody who may want to begin participating.
And then number one,
go ahead, Mr. Jeffries.
And then the number one, also picking up where Selectman Adams left off, instead of saying contact list generated, maybe we can re-identify that as list of all positions I'm not sure what the verbiage should be, but identify this as a list of all positions that are available at the end of the fiscal year, or available as of, I don't know, July 1st, or however we want to say it, other than contact list, because I think that's a little.
Okay, I get the point. So we want to generate a list of what opening, what term, what positions in what bodies are expiring. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, we can do that. Mr. Dwyer.
Just to, I guess what Ms. Adams and Mr. Jeffries are getting at is, okay, we generate a list of annual appointments to make the process open to everybody. I guess, are we looking to have a competitive slate of people vying for all of these appointments? My concern is that could be a deterrent for some people from continuing on, and others for volunteering, coming forward to volunteer because they don't want to get in a competitive situation. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. My thought is, if we have a problem with someone on a reappointment, we take that on a case-by-case basis. And if we don't, as the board, we don't feel that they're suitable for reappointment, we just deny that reappointment, and then we have a vacancy that we can then fill.
Ms. Adams.
I think it's very hard for people to gain access to participating in groups that are through appointment. We know the process of running in an election. You have a lot of control to be able to make your own decision, have people sign your form, put your name on the ballot, go to a caucus. I think there's a layer to the other groups that actually have a lot of important control and power over certain parts of town, but it's very hard if somebody's disenfranchised with something to affect any change. Ultimately, if they had a really hard time engaging, they'd have to run for selectman and be a part of the process, right? So I just feel like nobody should feel that they own a seat or entitled to keep a seat, and feeling a bit of competition's the wrong word, but feeling a bit of accountability to the people, I think, is important, because being appointed to some things like Conservation Commission have a huge impact on people's properties and people's outcomes. And so if somebody is sitting there, I think they should sit there with accountability to the fact that they've been appointed there in a very important role, but it doesn't mean they own the role. And so I think it's very necessary to understand that they expire and that sometimes there's a need for change. And I think being more aware of that creates an accountability that will improve people's participation on these groups.
So first of all, to Mr. Dwyer's point, that is the exact logic I've used all along. I think that promoting, however you call it, it's a competitive arena. You tell somebody that these positions are expiring and you encourage people to vie for them. Now, if there's more than one person for any one seat, that is a competitive situation, whether people want to call it that or not, that's what it is. And if somebody is actively seeking a reappointment because they have the seat and they have all this experience and they haven't done anything that would not necessarily call into question their service, I mean, obviously they have a leg up on it, not because they own the seat, because I've never heard anybody think that, at least in my tenure in town, but because they have experience on it. I find it hard to believe that a board would overturn someone's experience without any incident for somebody who's brand new to the position. So I think it creates a dynamic that may discourage people from participating and not encourage it. I said that from the beginning. It's not like I don't want people participating, but there's clearly, as every week we have the town manager noting in her report how many openings there are, there's definitely openings that people can apply for, and we don't see a load of people applying for them. So, I mean, I've never been really a big proponent of, if somebody wants a reappointment, to have somebody compete against them, unless, and this is the one thing I would say, unless they know that the person they're going to be running against, I would want the new person to know in advance that the person who has the seat is running for reappointment. I think that would be important information. They could say, you know what, I'll just wait till there's a vacancy, so it doesn't create an awkward situation where you're choosing people over other people without a whole lot of, background information to go on. So that's my position. Ms. Adams.
I think it's very likely that there would be reappointments because of the, difficulty in participation. I think the thing is not having a sense, because of the way it's always done, where we just reappoint. There's it's on the agenda one night. Nobody's really aware. We don't gather any information on whether or not somebody's interested in the vacancy. We don't know if there would be a different outcome. I think that's what I'm really sensing here is, I don't think much would change, but we haven't made any effort to, seek participation outside of those. It's hard to explain, but there were some members of the board when this was first worked on that could articulate it well too. Just that there should be some awareness that there's a process and there's an opening. And if we don't take pause to say there's really an opening or an opportunity, then people don't know there is one. So we have no way to know if people would say, oh yeah, I'd like to apply for that, because we don't really announce it or make anybody aware that there is an opening. So it's almost like it happens so fluidly that reappoint, that there's not a window for somebody new to participate. And being new to participation doesn't mean they don't have the experience or won't have their own leg up. Maybe they have served on a similar commission for 20 years in Groton and just moved here. And maybe they should be considered. I think we're making assumptions based on the fact that we've never done it differently to say, hey, there's an opening. Anybody want to throw their name in? I just think it would make for a nicer environment. And the situation would probably be the same, because people who are volunteering know how much time it takes and how thankless it can be. But I just think it makes for a better government if you teach and educate the opportunity. Otherwise, some people don't know. Town government's self-taught. And I think
communication happens through acts like these, like letting people know when there's an opportunity.
I want to be clear. I am not advocating that we don't advertise what terms are expiring. I think we absolutely should advertise when terms are expiring. Mr. Jeffries.
Yes, I'm in agreement with Selectman Adams' thought process on this. I think that I think that it is. I think we do create kind of like these lifetime appointments, essentially, that no one comes off these boards and committees unless they unless there's an incident that triggers some kind of outrageous activity, and even then, it's not always enough. Or when people choose to not be on the board or committee anymore. But we kind of lose the ability to assess. Like, I've watched some recent meetings for committees that and boards that we appoint, and they're highly inefficient. They're very long. And their boards where people who are applicants have to come before, and then you have to come before a board or committee and you have to sit there for 4 hours. It's some of it, to me, just so what's helpful and what's healthy is to change is to make it so that people are aware that these positions are there, and that if they have some ideas that they want to bring to the table, that is open to them. I do agree with the sentiment that some people maybe aren't going to be interested in a competitive process. And that's maybe why they're going, maybe why they're more interested in a position that's appointed. But there's a lot of reasons why people may go for the positions that are appointed, such as having a skill set in a certain area. But you're kind of disincentivized for wanting to participate if, I don't agree with your assessment, Mr. Chair, that about the leg up. I think that each of us can make a decision on what criteria we come up with to appoint, but the concept should be that, really it's a fair game, that there should be someone, if someone comes to the table, they have the skill sets, but they don't have the experience, it shouldn't preclude them from being appointed. And so as we look at getting beyond the theory of it all, so as we look at the list and we look at like number 2, if I may, and we see like the reappointment talent bank forms, I would kind of be opposed to that idea that we first go out to the people who are currently holding the seats to try to figure out who wants to be renewed. Because again, if you're the person who is looking, you have this experience, you're fresh out of school, you just got a AmeriCorps, whatever, you want to be on, I don't know, Conservation Commission, and you want to join that commission. When you're competing against people who've been there for 25 years, I think is the oldest member and longest member that's been there, but people with really advanced skill sets, you kind of feel like, hey, in order for me to get in, I need to be competitive with their skills, and maybe don't have it. But sometimes those people bring something different to the table. So I think the intent of the process is to be open to everyone and to make it clear that even though you're holding a position that's appointed, that it's not automatic that you're going to get it again. And that we should be freshly evaluating this every time. And if some members have the perspective that, hey, if you have the seat currently, then you should be able to go into it, then that's the perspective that is okay to have. But that should not be the process.
Okay, Mr. Dwyer.
So just thinking out loud here, if we're going to advertise for an annual appointment to a board, Conservation Commission, for example, and that the board members whose terms expire are notified that they can put in their talent bank form, and we advertise that these positions are open and to submit talent bank forms, are we then going to encourage all folks who submit talent bank forms, if they're not a current member of that commission, to start attending meetings and prepare for to come before the board to interview?
That's always encouraged, but I don't know if it's required.
I mean, if they submit talent bank forms and they're interested, I mean, the process to me, if we're going to do it, then everyone who submitted a talent bank form and wants to be on the commission should come before us during the, and we pick the candidates we think are best for that appointment.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Adams.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good process. I mean, I think Michael and I come to, this conversation with a lot of our own perspective. We both started in town government seeking an appointment to an elected position. And we went through a very rigorous process, but nothing I've seen the likes of since.
I agree.
And, I think it was really intensive. We answered written questions and I felt like I was on Survivor and got voted off. But I just think having been through all of that, you challenge yourself to think and participate, and it would be up to everybody, and I think that's the thing. If somebody wants one of these seats and starts thinking about it, and then they say, I sat in on over a year's worth of selectmen's meetings in the audience, didn't miss a single one for a year before I ran. The second time, in the beginning. And so I started to get to know people behind the scenes and then attend other meetings, et cetera. So if I was going for an appointed role, I could have that on my resume and say, well, see, I haven't been able to be on the board, but I've gone to a year's worth of meetings. And so I think people can build their own resumes and they can come before us. And somebody may shine above, a current member, even if longevity is an important factor. I don't think much will change. So I'm not too concerned that really, great volunteers will lose their seats and things like that, because we know the reality. I just think that if the process is improved, it just puts a better foot forward.
Concur.
I don't know. There is so much to unpack there. I'm completely, first of all, I have to say I'm completely lost in this conversation about where we are in this process, because all I hear is, people feeling like they're disenfranchised. I don't know. I've been doing this for like 15 years of selectmen and 4 years before that as a finance committee. I've never heard anybody come to me and say that they feel disenfranchised, that they can't get on a committee or something. So I don't think that the whole idea of it being competitive or not competitive is really an accurate depiction. And I think it really, if you listen to people when they get in front of us, they want to avoid confrontation. They want to be able to volunteer their time, not feel like they're trying to beat out somebody or something. They feel uncomfortable doing that. And as a person who has to vote on people, who there's more people than there are places, it's uncomfortable to begin with, even for complete vacancies where all of a sudden 5 people come for 2 seats and you have to deny 3 people who want to volunteer and you try to find them different places. So I think advertising for competition is just, I don't think it's going to go to the psychology of how people and why people come forward. And I mean, I'm willing to do what the board was, but we should get to what we want the process to be. So.
So we left
Ms.
off
Adams.
with 2.
Sure. I was just going to say we're in sort of an interesting philosophical discussion, and you are discussing a lot from your perspective, and you say you don't understand why anybody would be disenfranchised. You've been here 15 years. It's been easy for this and easy for that. And it's all about being in somebody else's shoes.
I said I didn't hear anybody say that. I didn't say I didn't feel it. I said no one has ever came up to me and say, you know what, this whole appointment process is not fair about how it's done. I've never heard.
Mr. Chair, may I
anybody say
just finish may I just finish? So coming to this conversation, it was very difficult for me to begin participation. I have a mentor that is now, on this board. Sometimes I struggle to be heard. I was yelled at during public comment. I was laughed at a lot. There is a lot of experience in my last 4 years in town government where I have struggled to be heard or struggled to participate or been eliminated from participation. It's happened on this board when I try to be on things like TCP BDC. And so advocating for there to be a more open and more comfortable way for people to say, I'd like to participate. I've been in the shoes of somebody who has struggled to participate. And so that's really what this is about, is knowing that it is hard to break through. Sometimes from the outside perspective, you can sense that there's a clique or a group. And
so we come from this from a different lens, and some of the things I'm saying may not make sense, but they make sense to me. And I've seen the process fail, and I've seen it fail for a lot of people, and people reach out to me because they know I play that role of the person who struggled to participate. And so this isn't just a random quest here. It's to say government can be better when participation is encouraged and people feel comfortable, especially if they feel different or unconventional. And so I think this is more important than it seems, because you don't know the amount of people who feel that participation in town is difficult unless you're aware of it.
Mr. Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I respect what Ms. Adams has to say. I don't necessarily agree. I think I fall more into the camp that I think this is a solution looking for a problem. But I have to be up at 4:30 in the morning, so I'm going to sign off for the evening. So I wish you all good night.
Thank you. Good night, Mr. Dwyer. Okay. All right. So do we want to go through this process and people can tell me how they want this to work? Because then we can get a process out of it.
Well, we left off for number 2 with the reappointment talent bank forms are mailed to people up for reappointment in May. Is that something that we're still looking to do?
I never liked the reappointment talent bank forms to begin with, so I don't particularly care about that one. I mean, I think the people, what I would say number 2 should be, if we're going to say we're going to gather a list of people whose terms are expiring on the various committees, boards, etc., then number 2 should be those people should be notified first that their terms are expiring, so they realize that their terms are expiring.
So that should be I agree with you. I think 2 and 3 and 4 could probably go away.
No, I don't think 3. I don't think 3 should go away yet. I mean, let's deal with what's there. Let's deal one at a time. But I think that we don't have to give them reappointment talent bank forms. I mean, that was something from a previous selectman who wanted them because he didn't like the fact that it was automatic, and we wanted people to say why they were still jazzed about their job on whatever committee or commission they were on and why they should be reappointed. Now, we could just say to somebody, first of all, before we do that, just let them know their term is expiring. And do you anticipate that you will be seeking reappointment? Just so they know their term's expiring. Is that fair enough?
Sounds great.
Any objection to that? Okay, so then from that, the responses, we can generate, what is going to be an uncontended vacancy. That means we have a position that no one is going to ask for reappointment, or it continues to be a vacancy because it was a vacancy all year. That's number 3. So
why are you differentiating those?
Well, again, no, I'm differentiating that there are no vacancies. If your term ends in June and we're letting you know in January, there is no vacancy. There's never a vacancy. A vacancy is only when there's a role that's not filled. So if we look to appoint people before the end of the fiscal year for July 1st, and somebody's term is expiring June 30th, officially there's no vacancy. That means the seat has always been occupied.
I think my question is why differentiate? Why have 2 lists? Why have one list of who's interested in renewing and one list of who's not? Why not just have a list of all those positions that are open and available?
Correct. Openings is the word. That's the key word we're missing. Creating a list of openings.
I make the differentiation only because I think there are people who don't want to be in an even however you cite the environment, however friendly you make the environment, however comfortable you make the environment, some people aren't interested in competing with somebody else. And if they know that the person they're competing against is a longtime member, has been on there, they're going to feel like, I'll just wait my turn. It's like, if you don't want to let people know that, I think that's a mistake. But again, we have a majority of the board. I'm just voicing one opinion. I think people may want to know what is vacant, what will be vacant if nobody's, appointed, or people who are not running for reappointment, however you word it. But if you guys don't believe that, then that's fine. In effect, I agree with what Mr. Dwyer said. I think this is a solution looking for a problem. So I think no matter how you word this, it's not going to change the reappointment process terribly much.
I think, if I may, Mr. Chair, before we go through this process and take a lot more time, if I can engage Mr. Marino on what his thoughts are on this.
He just wants to test your microphone, which is now not working again.
I've just been taking this all in. I look at it this way. I mean, I don't know anything about this process. I didn't know there was a reappointment talent bank form. Is that like a different one than the talent bank form, first of all?
Yeah, the talent bank form is why you want the job. A reappointment one is why we should keep you on the job.
Yeah.
Again, a previous selectman was very adamant about adding that in.
I remember that. And I thought it was ridiculous then, because the way I look at it is, can you hear me all right? Because
Yes.
All right. The way I look at it is, I look at it from the standpoint of being a police officer, because that's what I did for so many years. Every year, our jobs will come up for reappointment. We're appointed by the appointing authority. They're not open unless we do something wrong, or the town decide we don't want to reappoint you. They have that option, particularly with part-time cops. They don't have that option with full-time cops without going through a process. So we don't fill out an application, or we don't submit a resume. We don't fill out any talent bank forms. We just submit a list of names to the appointing authority, and on June 30th or July 1st or whatever it is, we get reappointed. Unless, like I said, there's some issue. There is no openings unless that happens. If for some reason, part-time cop, because I'm going to use that as an example because that's more apt to happen, decides they don't want to be reappointed, or maybe they're old enough where they just want to stop working, then there's an opening. We'll advertise it, we'll try to fill it, and that person will get appointed. That's how the process works. So I don't see it, I just can't see it any different here. If you got a member of the whatever committee, I don't know, not cemetery, I mean, one of the committees, the clock winders or whatever, and their appointment comes up for reappointment on June 30th or whatever, then unless for some reason the clock's been going backwards all year, then they get reappointed. Simple as that. I don't even see why they have to fill out a form, quite honestly. So if they decide they don't want to work, we advertise an opening. That's just the way I see it, and that's the way it's always been. I say that respectfully. I mean, that's just what I'm used to. Every single year we went through this, and that's just the police department, and we're appointed members, just like the rest of these people on these groups that you alluded to earlier in that list. They're appointed by the appointing authority, the town manager, and us. Am I wrong?
I think the only difference would be that police officers get paid. And so, it's a big deal if you don't get reappointed in terms of how you're making your mortgage payment and car note.
Well, that's why I use the part-time police as an example, because although they get paid, it's not a full-time job. It's different than being a full-time, somebody, they're making their living by doing that as a full-time cop, whereas a part-time cop may not be, although recently, in the last several years, obviously, we've kind of advanced that whole position to make it, to put them in a position where we would want to appoint them as full-time if an opening came up. So that's a little different, but I just can't get my head beyond that, because that's all that happened. Just it was automatic every year unless there was a problem. So I'm having trouble seeing it any other way, I guess, right now. That's why I'm listening to everybody. I'm saying this with all due respect.
Ms. Adams, you had your hand up.
Yes, for about 15 minutes. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry other people were talking. I apologize for them taking up some of their time.
We don't have to be contentious, but what I think in Mr. Marino, the example of employees and people providing that type of service are much different than people in a governmental role, because people say on the Conservation Commission are making rules and things that affect people's property. The police officer is implementing rules and things that have been set by other policy. They aren't making governmental decisions. And so although it may not seem important unless you engage with it, something like Conservation Commission, they are filling a governmental role that is making, they may decide if people can hunt on conservation land, things like that. And so they're making policy. The police officers are not. They are being reappointed to continue to follow through on a process that is being laid out for them. The groups we're talking about, Charter Review, Conservation Commission, they're impacting the government, and their opinions create the outcome. Not being able to look or seek for other people's opinions creates a closed loop. You said this is just the way it's always been, and the way it's always been isn't necessarily the way it always should be.
Mr. Jeffries.
I think that Selectman Adams and I have a minority view here. So I think that we should, I am in favor of ending this discussion. I don't think that we're going to make much progress on this tonight.
Well, hold on. Okay, so first of all, we have goals. I've been asked to put these workshop goals on so I don't forget them. I don't know that it's a great idea. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know it's a great idea if we don't go further and at least discuss what we want the process to be. I mean, what I think we should do is concentrate on the process. And now that everybody knows each other's philosophies on it, we could still go through what we want the process to be and make some headway. Now, if we want to say, hey, we've been doing this, if it's 3 hours already and we want to come back to it, fine. But I mean, if we do that, then I'm going to ask everybody to determine on their own, maybe this is the best solution. You determine if you were alone, were determining what the process would be, submit a list so we can go over and review each other's and then come back to another workshop and we can say, hey, these are the things I want to do and let's modify the process. I don't think the process as it is a good one. I would take reappointment forms out of there. So I think there's stuff to discuss that I think we could agree on. I just don't want to just throw it by the wayside. It is one of our goals and I do want to complete it. I think maybe the way to do that, and I just offer it as a potential solution, is that everybody submit what they would like the process to be. We can all review each other's and then we can come together and then try to meld them into one cohesive process. Does anybody have any objection to that?
Sounds great.
Ms. Adams, you had your hand up again.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense too. If we put it on the agenda and then come forward and each discuss with a list, that way we can work on things like verbiage. Like there's a lot of words that if you change the word, it would greatly impact everything. I agree that we should continue to work on it and improve it. And I think it will have a better outcome. We obviously all see it from our own lens, but creating a better process will benefit us. Anyways, when we talk about spending time on things and people get frustrated or feel like we're wasting time, I think we spent nearly 2 hours talking about the skateboard park. To me, investing time talking about the appointment process of major governmental things like a conservation commission warrants time.
I agree with you.
So I would definitely want to revisit it.
Okay, so let's everybody take that as a homework, and I'll make sure I get in touch with Todd. And we don't have, next week is our last meeting for the year unless we have some emergency. So over the next 3 weeks, if somebody can put together in that, just outline what you think the process should be. And maybe we're more in alignment than we think, except in certain points. Maybe we're not, I don't know. But at least if we submit them to each other, and just say, actually submit them to the
We
town
can't,
manager.
yeah, we can't submit them to
Submit them
each
to the
other.
town manager and she can distribute them to all of us at the same time. But only when she has all 5. So that way we can get all 5 together. All right, so I will, Mr. Jeffries, you get your wish that we will stop this right now for tonight, at least. Upcoming meetings and events. So next week we have a meeting and that will be, as I said, the last meeting. We will not schedule one right before Christmas or between Christmas and New Year's. Give everybody a chance to enjoy the 3 people they're spending Christmas and New Year's with, unless you have a larger family in your house, but you get the idea. Any public comment from the public? Wow, we even lost our usual public this today. I won't mention the name, but that's pretty impressive. Any public comment from the board?
Yes. And this should have come up during action items, but I'll just mention it now. I had the occasion to listen in on the last Conservation Commission meeting, and I was a little bit floored. I was not able to attend the meeting. I listened to it after the fact. So, I was also not at the last meeting, and I did not watch the meeting. I just got the summaries from you, Mr. Chair, and from Madam Town Manager. So Conservation Commission is debating many of their policies to include their policy on weapons in conservation land, to which I take a lot of exception. I think that it's crystal clear in my mind, and I don't have prepared remarks tonight, but I think it's pretty clear based on town bylaw and state law that the select board is the board in town that gets to make decisions on the discharge of firearms on public property. I think that the Conservation Commission is perfectly able and capable of making decisions about what properties hunting should be permitted on or not permitted on. Of course, I would encourage hunting to be permitted on more parcels than not. However, I do believe it's fully within their purview to decide about hunting and where hunting should be allowed. What I think is outside of their purview is whether or not someone can possess a firearm on public property. That, there's a lot of reasons, and I do believe that crosses the line into a Second Amendment concern, and I think it also crosses into our authority. So, certainly, again, them deciding who hunts, what properties are available, I think that no matter what, the process should require anyone who wants to use public property for hunting purposes or whatever to come before this board to get permission to do such, as I think we already expect. I think that for them to ban the possession of a firearm on public property, I think that as I look at it and we look at what creates the Conservation Commission, it's the Wetlands Protection Act. That a reasonable person would not think, in my opinion, a reasonable person would not assume that the Conservation Commission has the unchallenged authority to decide whether or not someone can possess a firearm on public property. There's a lot of reasons why someone may need or may want to possess a firearm. Certainly, I'm not advocating for open carrying. I'm not advocating that weapons can't be regulated. I simply think that it's the purview of the select board to regulate that. If the select board decides that weapons aren't allowed on town property, period, then I believe that, while I may not agree with that the select board is perfectly within their rights to do that. I do not think the Conservation Commission can make that decision. So I would like to see us either have this discussion formally as a board, so that way we can weigh in on this issue, and provide them with some guidance on what our expectation is or what our understanding is of the authority of this board, so that way we don't have these multi-layers of conflict. What concerns me is not that we're going to turn into, and I don't envision, for the parent who uses conservation land for their children, I understand the concern that they don't want the potential for their kids to get shot. I get all that. And I fully understand that. And I think that that's something that should be considered when it's decided on what property should be available for hunting. But again, my one concern is really limited, and it's the possession. It's the possession of firearms. So I urge that we have a discussion on this board to engage that topic, to decide if that's something that we want to say fully within the Conservation Commission, hey, make whatever rule you want to make. It's up to you. But I think we need to talk about that first.
Before we discuss that, I would ask Madam Town Manager if you can ask the Town Council, does the Conservation Commission, by our charter or by state authority given to Conservation Commission, do they have the authority to ban possession of a weapon on property under their control? Because if the answer is yes, they do, then it's a moot point about us having a discussion about it. If they don't, then we can certainly inform them that they really don't have that right. So that would be the first thing to know.
And if we could specify which, if I know that I read an opinion from Town Council that was an opinion, but if he's going to quote state law, I'd like to know the law that gives him that authority.
Okay. Is that clear, Madam Town Manager? Okay. Oh, you're muted. Ms. Adams.
Okay, I was just going to make a board comment of my own, not on this topic. So if anybody has anything.
Oh, Jim, do you have something to say about this same topic?
Yes.
Okay, you're on.
Based on what you're telling me, Mike, I didn't watch that meeting.
I can hear you.
Sorry. I'm sorry?
I can hear you.
You can't hear me?
I can. You're okay.
Okay. Based on what you're saying, it sounds to me like they're confusing the word hunting with the word possession of a firearm. I guarantee you, they will not be able to, or nor would we, be able to regulate somebody from carrying a firearm on public property, a person who has a license to carry. That's a constitutional right now that they're violating. They cannot do that. They can limit hunting. That's a whole different thing than carrying a firearm. So I think there's going to be a problem. You can see that. We don't have that authority either. And I guarantee you, when Heather checks with Town Council, is going to tell you that.
Right. I think that I had this discussion with Mr. Jeffries, as he said, when he asked about that meeting. And I agreed with him that if you have I think the Conservation Commission could say that you cannot open carry on conservation property. So if you have a right to carry a concealed weapon, you should be able to carry it. But I think
There's no distinction though. You have if you possess a license to carry a firearm, you carry it however you want. There's no concealed weapon issue in the state.
Can you carry so right now you could go in with an open rifle and on your shoulder into the school?
Essentially, not in the school. There's a
oh, well, so there are limitations. So obviously we have to know where the limitations are.
Well, you're talking about schools now. It's a whole different.
Schools are totally different.
Totally different. But yeah, it's not prudent for somebody to carry a rifle over their shoulder.
We're not talking about prudent, but believe me, people do imprudent things all the time.
But I've seen many people over the years carry handguns in the open. That's legal as long as they possess a license to carry. So some states don't allow that, but Massachusetts does. So they cannot do that.
Massachusetts is an open carry state.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not you don't get a concealed weapon. You get a license to carry a firearm. It doesn't tell you how. Carry it however you want. Most licensing authorities will encourage people not to carry it in the open because it makes people nervous. You know, when you walk in a Walmart with a gun hanging off your hip, people are going to be nervous about that. We, as law enforcement people, we discourage that, but can't stop it. So.
Okay. Ms. Adams, change of topic.
Totally. But that's I like the conversation there. Layers of law. So my board comment is just to wish everybody a Merry Christmas or Happy Holiday and a Happy New Year, because it'll be 2021. We'll be through with 2020 when we're together again. And just a special thank you to everybody who's worked so hard this year. And what was really, I guess, especially thank you to teachers, to the schools, parents, caregivers. The beginning of this school year was very difficult and challenging, and for the kiddos and stuff, it really still is. But the amount of effort
that you get from the teachers, because now they're in my house, you know, and it was overwhelming in the beginning, but now they're sitting at the kitchen table with me while I work. And so just thank you to everybody. It's been a really challenging year, but I think like in any time when something's very challenging, these really great things rise out of it. And so just Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and a big thank you to everybody who's gone above and beyond what we'd normally be doing.
Thank you. Are you saying that because you're not here next Tuesday, just in case?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm probably going to be here. I guess I have this weird feeling that this is it. I don't know.
Okay, I mean, it's fine to wish somebody that now. I didn't mean to discourage it. I just sounded like you weren't going to be here next week. So
Yeah, no, I mean, and I guess I am going to be. Whether it's the license renewal or everything, I just have this weird feeling. Hopefully I'll be here. Maybe I'll do y'all a favor and I won't be around.
that would not be doing us a favor. So I will say that to those Jewish members of our community who celebrate Hanukkah, which starts this Thursday evening. So happy Hanukkah, because that'll be before our next meeting on Tuesday. So I hope it is a good holiday for all of you, everybody out there. And I will make a pitch for anybody out there. You know, everybody knows from, if you listen to the news at all, that some people, this pandemic has hit very hard, not only with illness, obviously the most serious people are the hospitalizations and the deaths, but really the economic impact it's had on so many people's livelihoods and their ability to, you know, pay rent and pay car payments and, you know, losing jobs and everything. So there are a lot of people who are really, really hurting. And if you are one of those people who is privileged enough to not be in that position, I ask you to think about those people on the holiday and to give to those organizations that you feel closest to provide help of any kind to those people who are really going through a tough time, and to reach out to them. I mean, it really should be true any time of year, but this time of year just seems to be especially susceptible to that kind of giving. So I encourage people to give to the charity of your choice for the reasons of your choice, if you have that luxury and if you have that capability. Until then, I wish everybody a good night. And as always, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. We will see you next Tuesday. Good night, everyone.
Be festive.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, motion to adjourn. Yeah, that we should do that, shouldn't we? Sorry.
I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second? Mr. Marino.
Aye.
Ms. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries.
Aye.
And I for myself. You want to vote on this, Madam Town Manager? You seem the only one I